to Stratford-on-Avon District Council Planning Committee. My name's Councillor Stuart Keithley, and I shall be chairing the committee tonight. Before we start, I've always got to go through a bit of housekeeping. So the first bit of housekeeping is about fire alarms or needing to get out in an emergency, but there's no practice alarm, so if the alarm does go, we'll be going out back through reception into the Windmill Pub car park until it's safe to return or we decide what we're going to be doing. Right. The meeting is a meeting held in public. It's not a public meeting. So those that are registered to speak can speak, but we're not expecting other people to speak, unless you're a member of the committee, obviously. Please speak clearly into the microphones. I'll call you up if you're a public speaker, because this meeting is live recorded and it will be available to view afterwards. So this evening is very busy with lots of speakers. I'll tell you how long you've got to speak, and I've got a little timer here, and I'll have to hold you to time this evening for those reasons that we have a lot of speakers and a lot of business to get through. So that's that. I would like to introduce the top table to you. So from Democratic Services on my right, that's Howard Allison. And next to me, Sue Mullins, she's our legal advisor tonight. David Jeffrey is our senior planner, planning manager. And the presenting officers, Neil Hempstead, supported by Richard Greenway. And over the back, Joe Brooke and Eleanor Bass. And David has got a statement to read out about his role.
Thank you, Chair. My name is David Jeffrey. I'm the planning manager for tonight's meeting. My role is to provide impartial advice, to clarify any planning issues that arise, and to assist members' decision-making. Planning committee members are not bound by advice from officers or by their recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, David. Members, just to let you know, there is an update sheet in front of you with quite a bit on it, so hopefully you have a chance to have a look at that. Does anybody want a few minutes to look at it, or are you okay? Okay. All right, then, in which case we can start on the agenda for the meeting. And the first item, Howard, is apologies for absence, please.
Good evening, Chair. No apologies this evening.
Oh, good. That is quite unusual. The second item on the agenda is for any disclosures of interests. I've got a few hands going up, so I'll just go around from the left. Councillor Harvey first.
Just to say that I paid a visit to the site in relation to item 4 in order to assess for myself the landscape of the application.
Thank you. Nothing from Councillor Adam. Councillor Parry, was it?
Good evening, Chair. I made a comment to the first application, which is application 23//01054/OUT, just over 2.5 years ago. And if the application has not changed significantly, I will have to sit down. But if it has changed significantly in just over 2.5 years, then obviously I come with an open mind.
Okay. David, has it materially changed, do you think, to the extent that Councillor Parry should be able to participate in the debate?
Chair, I don't think it's changed so significantly that it would...
And in which case, the best thing for you to do will be, when we get to that point, just to sit out. Thank you, Councillor Parry. Disclosures. Councillor Hencher-Serafin.
Thank you, Chair. On item 5 on the agenda, Mappleborough Green, as this previously was in my ward, I know the two speakers, Councillor Maureen Berry and Councillor Matthew Spencer, but I come to this meeting with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm ward member of
in Gaydon, the application 23/01054/OUT. And also, I have met the developers probably about 18 months ago with the case officer and my fellow councillor Mills, just with a pre-planning run through, but I come with a clear and open mind. And I've made no comment on the application.
Thank you. Councillor Passingham? Oh, Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. Much like Councillor Hench-Seraphin, I'm a kind of adjoining ward member and was a neighbouring ward member to the Dog Hill Farm application before the boundaries changed, and to declare the interest that I know both Mr Phillips, the agent, and Mr Maloney, the applicant, although I've not spoken to them regarding this application at all, so I come with an open mind.
Thank you. And Councillor Fleming.
On the application, on the application for the Claverdon application, I've had several emails from one of the objectors, including photographs and whatever else. So I'm just declaring that I have received those.
Thank you. Are we coming back round again for a second go? Councillor Adam.
Sorry, I was going to say I'd also received those emails, so I was going to ask for a dispensation for all those who had received them. As item 5.
I think we can. I'm not sure I remember seeing them myself, but I have seen something else which I'll disclose in a moment. But Councillor Padgham, the same? So there are some emails coming into committee members from an objector in respect of item 5, was it? And I received something, and I don't know if anybody else received something from a neighbour. Councillor Passingham, you the same? Some photographs from a neighbour in Claverdon. So I think we get that on the list. Okay, so is that everybody done with the dispensations or disclosures? Thank you. All right, item 3 on the agenda is the minutes from the previous meeting, which was held on the 19th of November. So, members, I take it that you've had a look at those and you're happy with them? Quick show of hands for approving those minutes. No comments adversely. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so now we'll be able to crack on with the agenda. Just managing expectations of those in the public gallery. The first application on the agenda is quite a lengthy one, and it's been in the process before it came here for some time. And the chances are that we are not going to get through that for, I'd say, probably about an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. So by the time we get to the last two, Claverdon and Appleborough Green, we're going to be after a break, the other side of 8 o'clock. So if you feel you need to go out and come back, that's perfectly okay. I think we can arrange for you to come back in later on, just to manage your expectations if you're wondering why you're sitting there for such long, giving up the whole evening. Okay, so we're going to move on to the agenda item number 4, and this is, I'm going to read most of it out actually because David's asked me to be clear on the detail. So this is application 2301054 OUT. It's actually a hybrid planning application, land to the south of junction 12 of the M40 and adjacent to Banbury Road, Gaydon. This comprises a full application for commercial development, site access off the B4100, a maintenance access off Pimple Lane. I should just wait for a minute because the microphones will pick that up. Okay, thanks. Internal access roads, strategic landscape treatment, new earthwork building platforms, and 3 large commercial buildings, including some office accommodation, parking provision, and such like. And an outline application, other matters reserved relating to the internal site access, landscaping, appearance, and layout, with the exception of those earthwork building platforms and scale. So it's a fairly weighty application, detailed, and presenting this to us tonight is the case officer, Neil Hempstead. So Neil, when you're ready, if you'd like to take committee through this application, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is shown on the screen with the black dot, and just to give members a full extent of the application site, the red line boundary. So just to give some context to the site, so the application site is just where the cursor's moving there, Gaydon Village. And then we've got the collection of British Motor Museum, Jaguar Land Rover, and Aston Martin. So you probably picked up in the report the reference to 100 hectares allocated for Jaguar Land Rover on the Gaydon Lighthorn Heath SPD. So that is effectively that area there. Now, within the committee report, I've also made reference to the land off the Banbury Road, a current application on that site. So that is effectively following that cursor there. So it's surrounding and includes Swallowfields Farm. So it's just there. And then the new development of Gaydon Lighthorn Heath, which is being developed. So you can see some of the development which is completed, and then it will extend. You can see some of the construction there which is being undertaken. So in terms of the application start, I thought it would be helpful to just use some photographs which the applicant has included in the design and access statement. So looking from the M40 view 1, looking into the site here, which is the extent given there. Then 2, which effectively is showing where the new entrance to the site is going here. So 3 is along Pimple Lane, looking into the site. And these trees here, poplar trees, I can point out in other photographs just to give a point of reference. And then looking with your back to effectively Gaydon Village on the B4100, there's the Esso station there, petrol station, and you can see the site there. Those trees I just referenced here, you can see on the top of Pimple Lane, which extends down there. So just looking at some other photographs, so looking from junction 12 itself, you can see the extent of the site there. 6 is looking along Pimple Lane. I think that point 6 might be in the wrong place, and it should be down the bottom here. So it's just looking up into Pimple Lane, looking north. You can just see those trees up there that I referred to earlier. 7 is looking from a gap in Pimple Lane, looking into the site, the northern part of the field there, or the top field there. And then 8 is looking from Gaydon Road, and that's close to where the proposed access would be going. So just looking at the site layout plan and parameters plan. So effectively, the full application would be for Unit 6, Unit 5, Unit 4, all the associated landscaping and works, including the access. And there are some proposed off-site works, highway works, which are referred to in the committee report, which effectively fill in a missing pedestrian link there down to the existing bus stop, together with a zebra crossing. There's an area of open space here which would be proposed to be used for public use, which I've got a bit more detail later in the presentation. So the gross internal floor space for the 3 units would be 61,751 square metres. The white areas are the outline elements, which is Unit 1 and 3. Now, the building platforms for these would form part of the full application. And the floor space, the gross internal floor space associated with this part is 18,090 square metres. So just to give a bit more context to that in terms of a master plan, very similar to the previous plan, but what you can see is with Unit 1 and Unit 3 in place and the surrounding infrastructure such as parking. I must emphasise this is indicative at this moment, but it gives members an understanding of what the site may look like with all the elements in place. So just to give an idea of some cross sections, so a long section going through the site, you can see it from the M40, so that'd be Unit 6, Unit 5, going down to Unit 4, and then you see the houses in Gaydon there. So looking a cross section through there, through Unit 6, and you can see in another cross section here through Unit 5, and you can see how the land slopes up there, and a number of the nearest adjoining businesses which are referred to in the committee report are located in this area up here. And then coming down a section through Unit 1, again indicative, but you can see how the land slopes up there. So going in a bit more detail in respect of each unit. So for Unit 6, you can see the general design and some of the materials which were proposed to be used or could be used on the external part of the building. So the building is 18 metres in height to the roof apex from the proposed finished floor level. And just looking at the site layout for this particular element in a bit more detail, you can see the docking areas for the HGVs, delivery lorries there. You can see the lorry parking. You can see the access in. There's a gatehouse there, which I'll refer to in a minute, and you can see some of the vehicle parking. And just to give some context, that's Unit 5. So in terms of just giving an understanding in terms of floor space, so this is the ground floor plan. There's some office accommodation there which would extend to first and second floor level, and there are 2 office hubs here which would extend to first floor level also. And just for reference, the gatehouse there, and that's just a plan showing the gatehouse details. So moving down to Unit 5, again just showing the general appearance and some of the materials that could be used on the external surfaces. Again, this is proposed to be 18 metres in height to the roof apex from the finished floor level. So again, just looking at the site layout, you've got the lorry HGV docking areas, and you've got the lorry parking, and then the vehicle parking here. There's a gatehouse just there, and again, I've got the plans to show members of that. And again, the floor space area, and you can see the office accommodation here, and that extends to first floor also. So the gatehouse I referred to is just here, it's similar in appearance to the previous one for Unit 6, which I showed earlier. So in respect of Unit 4, so again the elevations and the proposed materials, this is smaller in height than the previous 2 buildings. This would be 10.5 metres in height to the roof apex from the finished floor levels. And again, just to show the site context, you can see that this building is divided into 5 smaller units with associated parking. And there's the proposed open parkland, which I referred to earlier, which would be available for public use. So just going to the floor plans, so you can see the ground and part first floor with the office accommodation in there also. So, in addition, within the design and access statement, we've been provided with some illustrative aerial views of units 6 and 5, and there's unit 5 down there, which I thought would be useful to give some context to the plans I've just shown. So again, this is the illustrative western open space, which would be available for public use, just to give some context in terms of sort of the landscaping and how that could look. And in terms of the landscaping, this is an illustrative master plan. We have a series of detailed landscaping plans which have been submitted with the application, but this gives a sort of colour representation which shows the landscaping clearly around the proposed units you can see there. And this is an example of one of the detailed planting plan for the site, which gives planting schedules. So just to give a context to the illustrative landscape master plan. So again, in terms of, we have some illustrative landscape sections which are contained within the design and access statement. So you can see looking through the site from unit 6 down to unit 4 with Gaydon there as well, and you can see the landscape areas which are shown. And again, looking through unit 5, you can see the raised areas which I referred to earlier, and the proposed landscape in there. And looking through Unit 1, which again is illustrative as referred to earlier, and so looking through that section there, and then just to give a bit of a wider context, D takes into account the edge of Unit 6, and then the land just to the south of that there, just to the beyond that. So to give members an understanding of the visual impact of the proposed development, the applicant submitted a number of photo montages and wire lines as part of the planning application, and I thought it would be useful to show a number of distance and closer views to give members a general understanding. I should also emphasise as part of this, it should be remembered that units 1 and 3 are illustrative at the moment because they are part of the outline application. So starting off looking northwest from Magpie Hill in the Burton Dassett Hills Country Park. So what I've got here, I'm going to sort of toggle between them just to give members an understanding. So if you keep an eye out there where the cursor is, so that's the existing view. And then just when the photo montage of the development where it's complete, which you could see there, that's upon completion, and then that's after year 15 where the landscaping comes into effect.
Neil, could you just for the benefit of the members, could you just help us understand how far from where you're taking that photograph, how far the development is? Is it 2-3 miles? Is it 6 miles? 10 miles?
Do you want to come into that? Do you want to come in?
It's about 5 or 6 kilometres.
Okay, thanks.
So then, and further one is looking northwest from Windmill Hill, which is just in front of where we were looking for in terms of the beacon tower. So if we go here, so it's just further in front beyond there. So that's the existing view. And now the blue area, it's a wire line, so this just shows the extent of the building. What it doesn't include is any landscaping or anything of that nature. That just shows the extent of the building form. So moving on, we've now got looking northwest from Centenary Way. So if you look in the corner here, the application site is there, you can just see the M40, so it's just beyond, looking there. So that's the current view. And then upon completion, you can just see the outline of the buildings there. And then at year 15, again, the extent of the buildings is just shown there. So this, again, just giving members a reference to the application site here of the M40. So just beyond here, on looking southwest from Centenary Way, just south of Nightcote Bottoms. So that's the existing view. And then with the wire line put in, again, that doesn't include any landscaping. It's just the extent of the building form. And then looking along Pimple Lane, looking north, so again, the application site there with the view form there. So that's the existing view. And again, that is a wire line, so no landscaping in there, just the extent of the building form. And then this is the entrance to Victor Close. So what you can see here is the Gaydon is just behind us, whereas we're looking here. So the petrol station will just be to the right down here. So that's the existing view. So upon completion, that would be Unit 4. And then after year 15, with the landscaping maturing, that would be the view. Now, looking south from the overbridge of the M40 Junction 12, so there's the extent of the application site, and there is the viewpoint there. So that's the existing view, and again, the wire line showing the extent of the building form, again, doesn't include reference to any landscaping. And then this is a view looking south from Centenary Way. So there's the application site there, the M40, and then the viewpoint. So you can see the current site in there. So that would be the development upon completion, the view upon completion, and then that's at year 15. So this is a photograph which has been taken by officers. So this is looking from the B4100. So this is the link road going up towards Jaguar Land Rover, which would be behind where this photograph's being taken. But this is just to give a view of the extent of the application site. So you can see Pimple Lane going up there, and there are the trees that I referred to earlier. So, Chairman, there are a number of updates as detailed in the update sheet, including corrections and amendments to the committee report, including the reasons for refusal, response from the applicant's agent to the committee report, and an update in respect to the Section 106 requests from County Highways. Chairman, the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons detailed in the committee report. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Neil, for that. Okay, so on this application, we've got a number of speakers. First of all, we have Councillor Adrian Claxton, who's the chair of Gaydon Parish Council. So, Mr. Claxton, oh, good evening. Good evening. Come forward, thanks. So you're objecting to this proposal, Councillor Claxton, and you have 3 minutes to help us understand the nature of that objection. And I'll give you a 30-second warning. I might have to speak because you'll be busy reading, so just so that we can keep to time. Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can just start when you want.
I'm here to represent Gaydon Parish Council. As can be seen from the 200 plus objections, the majority of the residents of Gaydon we strongly object to this application. From a village of approximately 500 residents, you have received nearly 250 objections, which equates to almost all the adult population, with only 3 in favour, which came from outside the village. We strongly object to this application because of the effect it will have on the character of the village, turning it from a predominantly farming community, which until recently Mr. Brightman was part of, to a suburb of an industrial estate. We have begrudgingly accepted the inevitability of the GLH development as part of the current core strategy, and that, in time to come, industrial development will come to that land northeast of the B4100. But the proposed development land is not part of the core strategy, the current core strategy. For the sake of Gaydon, the B4100 must be a red line at which development stops. It would be bad policy of the committee to preempt any future core strategy or local plan. The GLH land has not yet been developed for whatever reason. The proposed land should not even be considered for development until GLH land has been realised. If there is a need and a justification for industrial units at Junction 12, then that's where they should be built. At the 11th hour, Aston Martin was revealed as an interested party. This can only be a ruse, one that Burton Dash Parish has fallen for. Anyone who reads the news will know that recent events have put AML in a difficult financial situation. I would question their ability to realise their ambitions towards this development. Their good name has been used as a stalking horse to get the development through this application. The developer has proposed green space between the village and the development. Who is going to pay for the upkeep of this area? Gaydon Parish certainly can't afford it. Can SDC? You must reject this application for the following reasons: the effect on the character of the village of Gaydon, the strength of the objection from the residents of Gaydon. If democracy works, this should mean something.
That's 30 seconds to go. Thanks.
The land is not included in the current core strategy, whilst adjacent land, which is in the core strategy, has not been developed. The recommendations of some of your council officers have also been to reject this application. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Claxton. Oh, if you wouldn't mind just, it's okay. It's just that the members have got an opportunity to ask some questions now about your presentation or your objection. So thank you for that. So members, sometimes they don't have any questions, Councillor Claxton.
Any questions?
But I'm looking around the table. So here we go. Councillor Harvey has a question.
Yes.
Councillor Claxton.
Councillor Harvey, can we... Thank you.
I'm interested in the objections, the over 200/250. Do you have any handle on how many of those came from people who don't live in Gaydon, but who might have an interest in the countryside around Gaydon?
I don't have. I didn't dig that precisely, I'm afraid, much to my disgrace.
Thank you, nevertheless.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay sometimes. I mean, there's so much detail in these applications, so you can't be expected to read through all 250 objections. Does anybody else? Councillor Hencher-Serafin has got a question for you on the end here.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening. This land, it states that it's agricultural land. Is it good agricultural land?
Well, it's been used to grow wheat for Warburtons in recent years, so I would say that was pretty good land to me, in my ignorance.
I don't know if we should comment about Warburtons in the public, but
no,
I know what I mean for me.
As an indication,
it's grown wheat.
It's been growing wheat for a bread maker. So
okay.
I would say that was pretty good land.
That was just me being a bit flippant. I apologise for that because I don't normally eat Warburtons, but it might go in the toaster. Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, obviously I've read the papers, but in your own words, kind of just what direct impact would it have on the village itself?
Well, if you look at the scales from the maps, that that whole area is about the same size as a village. And the size of those, just looking at the wireframes that you've shown, the size of those buildings is the other thing that it's the Junction 12 is the gateway to Stratford district. It's when you come off Junction 12, you come into beautiful countryside. As soon as you do that, you're going to have an industrial estate. It's going to be the first thing you see, and then when they build on the other side, you're going to have more industrial estate. I've got.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to. I mean, those are massive buildings.
Thank
really
you.
massive buildings.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've really looked at those photographs,
Okay.
and I'm not even convinced that the topography sections are accurate.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Claxton. I think we might be
You're
done.
done?
So, in which case, thank you very much for your representations. Thank you. Okay. We're on to the next speaker. That's Martin Winter and Tony Hughes. So if you'd like to come up to the front there, good evening both. And I understand you're residents of Gaydon, is that right?
That's right.
Right, thank you for coming. I'm assuming you're objecting to this, are you, or supporting it?
Objecting.
Objecting. So how are you going to play this? You've got 3 minutes.
I will present.
You'll speak, okay.
Tony is here to answer questions.
And if there's any questions, we'll be sharing the answers. Okay, same format, 3 minutes, and when you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Martin Winter, and I'm here to object on behalf of the community of Gaydon. I'd like to thank the committee for hearing us today, as this proposal is not supported by the local community. I will focus on 3 main reasons why. First is the permanent damage to the character of the landscape. The very first strategic objective of the core strategy says the rural character of the district will have been maintained and enhanced. The greenbelt and the countryside of the district will have been protected from inappropriate development. Development of this scale in this location is inappropriate. 6 enormous warehouses would dwarf the size of the village and run right up to its edge. There is no suitable buffer of land to preserve the character and distinctiveness of Gaydon. The campaign for the protection of rural England said it would have an overbearing effect. 3 established small businesses on Pimple Lane will be adversely impacted. A mile up the hill, we have Aston Martin and Jaguar Land Rover. Many in the village have proud links there and want those businesses to prosper. We are not against development for growth and for jobs. There is a supplementary planning document to allow for this. But the land in this application does not fall within the 105 hectares already designated. Please stick to the agreed SPD to balance economic growth and preserve the rural nature of the district. Second is traffic. Construction and operations would see hundreds of HGVs coming and going at all hours every day. The roads in and around the village are not designed for this. There are school bus pickup points on Banbury Road. It is used by cyclists and dog walkers, so there are safety implications. 1,800 people will need to get to work every day, and the plain fact is they will do so by car. Rail is not an option. Bus services are inadequate. Gaydon residents will bear the brunt when any 3 to 5 year Section 106 plan comes to an end. Third is environmental impact. Residents have a real fear of flooding since 17 houses flooded in 2007. Severn Trent makes it clear no new investment is coming anytime soon. We can already hear the motorway in the village. We will hear the engines and air brakes and reversing beeps of the HGV.
30 seconds left. Thank you.
We will breathe the diesel fumes and particulates. We will see the omnipresent lights. This committee should refuse permission. We trust you to do the right thing. Industrial development on this site, this close to the village, damages the character of the district, has an unacceptable impact on traffic and travel safety, and on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got the opportunity to ask you questions. So I wondered if any of the members around the table would like to ask you any questions about this development and your representation? You're not sure, but now you are.
I'll ask you.
Councillor Harvey.
This committee in the past has been faced with applications where speakers have made assertions about certain things which have then caused problems. I don't disbelieve what you say about traffic and the impact of traffic that might occur as a result of this development were it allowed. But have you got any evidence, surveys, data that would substantiate the criticisms you make about the potential impact of traffic? I mean, from the committee's point of view, while we can hear what people say in making assertions about traffic levels, it's difficult for us to give full weight to that unless it's substantiated by evidence. So my question is, have you got any hard facts, survey data, anything at all that would substantiate your criticism based on traffic?
Going back to the 1990s, after the M40 was open, the Department of the Environment...
Can you just help? Hang on a second. If we just need the microphone on because it's an open... So we just turn your microphone on, so it's fine. Thank you, Tom. There we go.
Okay. Going back to the 1990s, soon after the M40 was opened, the Department of the Environment compensated half of Gaydon for the pollution, the noise, and the general traffic disruption that existed then. Since then, the traffic has increased exponentially, and there is no way that there will be any diminishing of that traffic. Already, the B4100 is used as an alternative when there are problems on the M40, which I'm afraid seem to increase, once again, exponentially by the month. So you will have that incredible mishmash of traffic cutting through the village and then going round onto the dual carriageway and encountering the 24/7 lorry manoeuvres, which have not really been addressed, but there we are, and the adjacent pollution. Now, if the Department of the Environment then compensated spontaneously, I would add, it was not under pressure from Gaydon residents, then that was 35 years ago. Everyone knows that the traffic situation is much greater than that by any standards.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Chair. Junction 12 was modified 10 years ago, was it? About 10 years ago. Prior to that, we were getting queues on the M40 southbound, going back to the first overbridge, which is about half a mile, about a kilometre. Have the changes made any difference to that? Are you still seeing queuing on the M40? And what effect is that having on the B4100?
Well, there are... it has alleviated the problem, without a doubt, but at key times, early morning, late afternoon, and so on, there is still queuing. And I think the dual carriageway which was put in place, known locally as the Starlight Express, for the excess lighting, unnecessary lighting and so on, it has a very ambivalent relationship with the village because it's useful to have that traffic being taken away from the local roads adjacent to Gaydon. But unfortunately, the thinking is, oh, you're blighted already, well, why not have a bit more? Because that's the way it could be seen. I think that would be detrimental to the environment of Gaydon and set a bad precedent for Warwickshire generally.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. I don't know if don't appear to be any more questions, but I'd just like to explore something with you because some members and those that might be supporting the fact that there are jobs potentially here alongside the motorway, you're going to have a lot more houses are proposed for this general location as well, aren't they? So what do you think the response would be from people in Gaydon about the provision of the jobs for people that are going to be moving into those houses right alongside the motorway as well, which are, you've got, I think probably some people would argue would be excellent links. What would your response be on behalf of the residents?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of hype and inflation about the actual job creation that would occur because of this. We're now heading into an era of automation, and these large warehouse sheds, I'm afraid, will not be staffed by hundreds and hundreds of people, but dozens probably, with automation and AI filling in the gap, shall we say. Now, there is a problem that you would say, oh, well, you're saying that that wouldn't create traffic problems, etc. Unfortunately, I think the whole character of the area would be changed by this unnecessarily. I remember writing to the Stratford Herald a few years ago, I said, if you look from Edge Hill in about the year 2030, there's a real danger that you'll see this urban sprawl that doesn't have any centres, but extending from 7 or 8 miles from Edge Hill to Lighthorn. And this will be in the middle of it. Right. It will appear to be, a thriving town, but in fact it would just be a very ungainly sprawl.
Okay.
And
all right.
very detrimental to Warwickshire.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think on that basis, if there are no further questions, would thank you very much for your representations this evening, and thank you for explaining how the people in Gaydon feel about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So. Thank you, Tom. Our next speakers are Roger Tustain of Nexus Planning and Matt Rhodes of RPG, supporting the application and on behalf of the applicant. Good evening, gentlemen. Right, thank you. So you've got the equivalent time, 6 minutes you have, equivalent to the 2 sessions we've just had. So how are you going to play this? You're going to help us understand this application in a bit more detail, I'm sure. Is this you, Roger? Is that you? Roger, could you just pop the microphone on for me? Thank you, that's great.
Yes, Chairman, I'm the planning consultant who's acting on behalf of this scheme. So I'm going to just give you a bit of a narrative about the need case for the scheme.
Right.
And that's affecting my client. And
okay, and so you're going to have the full 6 minutes?
We'll have the 6, well, I'll do my 3 minutes and Matt will take as long as he's...
Okay. Oh, hang on a second. Okay. Can you see I'm speaking straight into it, Roger? You just need to... That's it. That's great. Thank you. So 6 minutes and over to you when you're ready to start. I will give you 30 seconds, sort of a little heads up as you come towards the end.
Well, good evening, committee members. This application was submitted in response to the clear and evidence need for significant employment-generating investment in Stratford-on-Avon and the wider Warwickshire sub-region. That need has been evidenced and validated through numerous employment studies procured by the Council and other organisations in the region, concluding that there is a significant shortfall of available modern employment supply across numerous business sectors to support the economic growth of the area. In our view, the level of need, together with our own assessment, provides compelling support for the site development, which is located in one of the most strategically important locations within the area. The site is immediately adjacent to the core strategy policy GLH boundary, sited next to a significant area of safeguarded land through policy for the expansion of JLR. The overall area has and will therefore be going through planned transformational change. The site's accessibility and role in supporting the growth aspirations of high-profile local business cannot be underestimated. We've worked closely with your officers and other technical stakeholders over the last 12 months to address, where possible, all technical site issues. This has involved reducing building heights, removing one of the proposed units, and increasing landscaping buffers planting to deliver enhanced mitigation. Only 2 technical issues balance against this development, with all remaining issues being resolved or capable of resolution through Section 106 agreement. Firstly, landscape. It is acknowledged that the proposed development does result in localised landscape and visual impacts, but these have, where possible, been positively addressed through our design evolution. What results is a very localised impact on the local landscape context, a context that includes the urban edge of Gaydon, highway infrastructure, including the M40 to the south and east, and an allocated area for JLR business expansion to the north. Overall, we consider that notwithstanding some residual impacts, the harm to local landscape does not outweigh the very substantial economic benefits that this development could deliver, specifically within the context of the evidenced need. The second issue relates to the impact on the Gaydon Inn listed building. There will be no discernible intervisibility of buildings from the Banbury Road when landscape has matured. Whilst the parkland will be different in character to the current agricultural landscape, we would disagree with your heritage officer's conclusion that the landscape setting of Gaydon would dramatically alter from one of pastoral rural setting to one of an industrial character. Letters of support from Aston Martin Lagonda, Invest in Warwickshire and the Coventry and Warwickshire Chamber of Commerce all support the application, stating that the space would support their respective economic aspirations. On balance, we consider that the economic benefits of the scheme from a local, regional and national perspective, reinforced by the acknowledged high level of employment space need in the district, are substantial and outweigh the local landscape harm and any heritage harm, and would urge members to approve this important planning application.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak as well. My name is Matt Rhodes and I represent the applicant CG Land Promotions. Members face a critical decision this evening and must balance the considerable need and benefits of this scheme against any perceived harm. The latest council evidence base identifies a residual local industrial need of 140 hectares and a further strategic floor space need of 125 hectares along the M40. This is 265 hectares, a significant quantum. At around 29 hectares, these proposals before you this evening represent only 11% of this total need. And I mention this because it highlights the scale of the issue facing this authority in ensuring that it supports businesses, secures new jobs and promotes economic growth. The officer report mentions it's not clear as to when this need is required. However, based on the evidence, since 2022, the council should be securing on average around 11 hectares of employment land each year. As we sit here today at the end of 2025, the council could already be behind in supporting the local economy. Indeed, existing Stratford businesses such as Aston Martin Lagonda, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, who represent hundreds of businesses across the region, have both highlighted the need for floor space now. These types of development are integral to a diverse local economy, and the proposals, which could open in 2028, will create space for manufacturers to grow and innovate, expand capacity for research and development with opportunities for tie-ins with world-leading institutions such as the University of Warwick, secure storage space to ensure that businesses can operate efficient and sustainable supply chains, provide certainty to enable businesses to make critical investment decisions, and deliver smaller and more affordable grow-on space for young enterprising businesses. The development could therefore make a significant contribution to the local economy, and on a site that is located within a growth corridor aligned to the council's existing and emerging spatial strategy, on a motorway junction critically with existing highway infrastructure, and adjacent to a cluster of automotive manufacturers and a growing new settlement at Upper Lighthorn. Only yesterday, the government began a consultation on revised national policy, which places even greater weight on the need to deliver these types of development in order to support businesses to invest, expand and adapt. Without this development, and indeed others like it, the risk is businesses will be pushed out of Stratford, jobs lost and new investment and economic growth stifled. I therefore respectfully request that members do not refuse this application this evening and instead offer their support. In doing so, you'll be responding positively to the calls of your existing businesses, embracing the exciting opportunity to support and attract new investment, and send a clear message that Stratford is open for business. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rhodes. I was going to give you a reminder there, but I didn't need to. You just come in on time. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Quite a bit of information you put across to us. I'm interested to know if any of the members have got particular questions for you. Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you. Can I just ask how many jobs this potentially will bring?
It was in the, we put we assess the jobs based on a sort of acknowledged economic assessment, and it's in the committee report.
While you do that, I think it's based on sort of industry assessments of these types of developments. It's circa 1,800, just under 1,800 jobs.
Yeah.
Councillor Ballinger, just to say that the some of that detail is in fact in the officers' report. You've got the opportunity to ask the officers about that.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify. I know it's in the report, but I just wanted to clarify if that was still the case.
Thanks. Any further questions? If I can pitch in with a question. The development is of fairly significant scale, and you've explained how supply chain, distribution, and logistics is important in this particular circumstance. And those sorts of supply chain sheds are significant buildings, aren't they? There are quite a lot of distribution sheds in other locations. And I'm wondering why you choose this location for logistics sort of scale sheds when I see similar buildings perhaps closer to larger conurbations. So I'm thinking from my own experience to the east of Rugby, for example, where there's a concentration of this type of distribution. And also there's some fairly big sheds along the M1 corridor and south of here towards Banbury. Why this location for that type of building? Why is that important? It feels like a relatively rural location unless you're just factoring in the supply chain for JLR, and JLR of course have already got some land allocated. So could you help me understand that?
Yeah, I think just to be clear as well, that the application is not specifically for logistics. It is a flexible application to provide floor space for both logistics, manufacturing, and other uses. So it's flexible floor space to effectively provide capacity for the local economy to grow. But to sort of go and answer the specific question about why here, I mean, for a host of reasons, I think it's already been touched upon. You've got a growing new settlement with housing, being delivered at pace. People need jobs. There are two significant local employers in Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin, literally on the doorstep. Obviously, you've known from the committee report and the letters of support from Aston Martin, they have ambitions here to grow and expand their operations here and consolidate and drive efficiencies there. So, it's not just about the quantitative need, as we've all sort of rehearsed. The qualitative side of things is that those things on the doorstep, and this is a prime location. I also touched upon, these types of development usually require quite a lot of highway infrastructure. There's long lead times. This is all in place here. You only have to drive to that junction to see what's been delivered in recent years in terms of highway infrastructure.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Harvey, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Stratford district is an affluent area with a very low unemployment rate, whether measured against the local region or against national figures. You're making the assumption that this development would generate some 1,800 jobs or thereabouts. Can you tell us something about the volume of those jobs which you anticipate being filled from people within the district? And what's the skill set match between the labour force, the unemployed labour force that's available within the district, and the skills you're looking for in the sort of jobs that you think are going to be provided by this 1,800 development? And I have to say, I haven't had any information yet on what type of jobs those are, so I'd be very interested in your reply.
If I can just answer the question about unemployment rate, I think you're right. Stratford it's got a very low unemployment rate, but the issue there is where the jobs are located, because a lot of Stratford residents move out of Stratford to access employment elsewhere. And some of the work you did some time ago, your employment strategy, realised that a lot of the jobs created in Stratford were local sort of hospitality type jobs. So what the strategy is, in our view, is to try and bring more jobs to Stratford of a high quality. Through discussions that we've had, it's very clear this scheme, as Mr. Rhodes highlighted, it's not a logistics park. It's got some large buildings in there, but it's also, on purpose, we identified a number of smaller units to try and match your local industrial strategy of providing new startup type units. So when we were looking at planning this site from the start, we had a variety of a range of buildings that could accommodate a range of different jobs. Now, at the moment, we aren't clearly the end user, but we've taken advice on the types of jobs created here, and that there will be some logistics jobs, but more and more now, logistics jobs are higher skilled because they're very much reliant upon technology. It's not people in brown coats pushing in warehouses anymore. They're very high tech, and the kind of jobs they create are high value technical jobs. So, I mean, we can't give you the breakdown. Clearly, through the papers, you'll have realised we've been discussing with existing local occupier, Aston Martin, the types of jobs they'll be creating there. And those jobs will be very high-skilled jobs. But in terms of the broad range of jobs, we see those being high-skilled jobs for Stratford residents, but in the district, to avoid the need to out-commute. We aren't necessarily saying we're creating jobs for people in commuting, although inevitably there will be a number of jobs that come from outside the district. Also important, I think, is the fact that when the Gaydon-Lighthorn-Heath settlement was first established and identified, it was partly justified on the fact that there are a number of jobs at Aston Martin and Jaguar Land Rover with no associated houses. And during the examination, which I was part of that, during the examination, we discussed the relationship between employment at Jaguar Land Rover and new homes. And I think it was acknowledged that aspirationally over time, you might get people who work at Jaguar Land Rover who live on the new settlement, but that's aspirational. What we were saying now is that the range of new jobs we're providing here provides for a much more mixed economic base for the residents of Lighthorn Heath. I think the planned number of dwellings at Upper Lighthorn is 3,000 dwellings with a significant job creation. Few of those will work at Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin, and this will provide opportunity for local jobs in Stratford for local residents. So really we're creating a mix of jobs for potentially local people long term, but also jobs for people in Stratford that potentially have to out-commute at the moment to get their jobs.
Right, thank you very much. Did you have a follow-up question?
I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay.
In your answer, in your reply, you didn't say anything about the skill set match between the jobs that might be created and the local skill sets of people that already live in the area. My experience is that when employers seek to make a large investment by moving geographically, they'll take some regard, they'll pay some regard to the type of the match between the people they want to employ and the type of jobs they might offer. I can think of an instance, direct experience, where an organisation I used to work for that was based in London. It looked around the country for a site for a replacement headquarters, and it decided that Swindon was the right area because of the nature of the workforce there. You haven't said anything about that match. If you can, that would be very helpful.
I think I can. I mean, I think the key issue with this sub-region is the automotive sector and the skills that are around, not just in Stratford, but in the whole sort of Coventry, Warwick area, where you've got world-class education institutions, you've got major investors in automotive engineering, such as Jaguar Land Rover, Aston Martin, a little bit down the motorway, McLaren, etc., and Mercedes. What we find is that employers will be attracted to this area because of the education and the skills in that particular sector. What you have got in this area is a high number of very skilled automotive manufacturing jobs in the area. Now, by effectively locating this within the vicinity of two exceptionally world-renowned brands who have, one has its world HQ here, Aston Martin, and the Jaguar Land Rover, as you know, it's their research and development headquarters. The jobs created by those two operators are exceptionally high-skilled. They're located in the area partly because of the heritage of Jaguar Land Rover in the area, but Aston Martin came to this area ostensibly because of the availability of design and engineering jobs. This site is exceptionally well located to encourage investment in the supply chain for those companies, R&D for those companies, probably more so than the other areas you were talking about along the M1 corridor, where there isn't that skill base. So this site in particular, I think, will attract that type of investment.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. I'm sure members found that interesting, that little conversation between you and Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harding, please.
Thank you. I'm concerned about the impact on Junction 12, which has only just been sorted out. Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin used to stagger their start times in the morning peak to try to ease that. And I know you've run your figures through a parametrics model, which has been calibrated by Warwickshire County Council and ticked as okay. I presume you've carried out counts to put into that. Did you survey Junction 12 itself?
Yes, a detailed survey was undertaken, and it's not just, of course, Warwickshire County Council that have a stakeholder here. It's National Highways who tend to take a very active view when you have issues of motorway queuing. So we've liaised closely with National Highways and Warwickshire County Council. We input into the detailed traffic model, counts were taken. We looked at Aston Martin, Jaguar Land Rover's master plan and their planning applications, and factored in their growth aspirations on their current site. And all that's been taken into account to the satisfaction of Warwickshire County Council.
Well, yes, I will allow another question, but what I would also like to do, just in response to your first question, Councillor Harding, is to draw your attention to page 58 of the officer's report and the third paragraph under highways, which set out the officer's findings in respect of WCC's assessment. Have you got a fairly quick follow-up question?
Well, yes. If we've got another 3,000 houses going in at Gaydon Lighthorn, that's likely to generate probably 4,500 vehicle movements in the morning peak, which a lot of that is going to use Junction 12. What I'm interested in is where did your model suggest that most of the movements will be coming from, at what time of day, and is there a peak, or are you running over?
I'm probably going to say, as the chair, probably that is possibly a question to direct to the officers, because they have got the detail back from Warwickshire County Council, and as I said a minute ago, if you turn to page...
I've got it marked.
Turn to page 58. The County Council Highways team have made an assessment, and all the members can read paragraph 3 and form an opinion about the consultation response. So I think getting into more detail about the paramedics and the paramedics details probably isn't the right time to do it. So if I might suggest that. So any further questions? I'm looking around the table, I don't think so. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Okay, so we move on to our final speaker on this topic, and it's Councillor Mills. Good evening, Councillor Mills. Welcome to Planning Committee.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So you're allocated 5 minutes. Do you think you'll need all of the 5 minutes?
Oh, you know me.
I'll set the timer going then as soon as you start.
Okay.
Over to you.
Good evening, committee. Firstly, my thanks go to Neil Hempstead, the planning officer, for such an excellent and detailed report. This proposed commercial development is located off Pimple Lane, a quiet, narrow road used by walkers and cyclists, and should this application be granted, it would destroy this very attractive part of our countryside. The planning application states that there will be an emergency and maintenance access off Pimple Lane, which will be totally inappropriate for such a narrow lane. I'm sure when you did your site visit, you have seen how this proposed commercial development would devastate the countryside. Policy C8 tells us, and I quote, "The district's historic environment will be protected and enhanced for its inherent value and for the enjoyment of present and future residents and visitors," end of quote. The application is on farmland and part of rural setting, and if built on, the character of Gaydon would be largely destroyed. Too much farmland is being taken over by developments such as this application, as well as the loss of farmland being lost to solar panels, which is also a contributing and cumulative effect to the loss of our countryside. The SDC landscape officer has objected on the grounds that the development is appropriate or inappropriate due to the proposed scale and causing widespread landscape harm, as in core strategy policy CS5. As seen by the superimposed photo on one of the slides from the planning officer, you can see how the buildings will impact on the countryside. Also, committee, the prominence of this site is questionable, as there would inevitably be an issue of light pollution, which is stated in an objection from the landscape officer. Gaydon has a problem with flooding. In 2007, when I became a councillor, the village of Gaydon suffered terribly with several houses being flooded out. I strongly feel that this proposed development will only increase the risk of flooding to the village of Gaydon, as the increased runoff of surface water from this proposed site will be quite significant. The proposed development will overlook and bear down upon the village of Gaydon, and it will appear totally incongruous in its rural surroundings. The proposal will have a detrimental effect on the local character of the area, as well as the overbearing and dominating visual impact on the village of Gaydon. It will also have a major detrimental effect on the cattery business and greyhound dog breeding business based on Pimple Lane, as the animals will suffer from the continuous noise of traffic movement on the proposed site. Should this application be granted, I'm sure within a very short space of time, the cattery and greyhound business will fold. There is also no demand for warehousing in this location, as there are several empty warehouses that have been waiting for some time to be occupied off Junction 11 Banbury, just 10 miles south of Gaydon. The creation of large distribution units is generally not aligned to the business requirements of the district. Also, the buildings do not comply with the core strategy. It is suggested in the application that the development of this site will bring employment to the area, but there is a very low rate of unemployment in the district. So, committee, are these jobs needed? This is stated on the last paragraph on page 22 of the report. The proposal for this inappropriate development, if granted, would, in my opinion, devastate and cause great harm to the landscape. Therefore, I object to this proposal based on, number one, risk of flooding, number two, detrimental impact on the landscape, number three, harm to the business on Pimple Lane, or businesses. 4, the creation of large commercial development is not aligned to the business requirements of the district. 5, the overbearing nature of this proposed development on the village of Gaydon. 6, the loss of agricultural land. 7, the only inappropriate scale and harm to the local environment currently enjoyed by the residents and the potential overload of the current infrastructure. I consider the application to be contrary to the following core strategy policies: CS6, CS8, CS22, CS24 and CS26. Number 8, buildings do not comply with the core strategy policies CS1, CS2 or CS3. Number 9, the development is inappropriate to the proposed scale and causing widespread landscape harm. There are good reasons in this report as to why this application should not be granted. I therefore urge the committee...
30 seconds.
Therefore, I urge the committee to accept the recommendation of the planning officer and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mills. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10 reasons in the end, was it? Not 9.
It was 9. I can give you more.
Yeah, okay. No, I just trying to remember. Members, do you have any questions for Councillor Mills and his representations? I think stunned silence And it might be because of all that went before, actually, Councillor Mills, because there have been quite a lot of presentations already. So thank you very much indeed for coming along and your representations.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, members, here's your opportunity to ask questions of clarification of the officers. And Richard's here to respond to any questions you might have in respect to landscape assessment. Councillor Harvey.
I have three. Deal with them one by one?
Well, I'd go for all three if I were you.
No, deal with them one by one, because they're quite different.
Oh, are they? Okay.
First question. On the explanation that I heard, I didn't hear anybody say that there was actually going to be access from Pimple Lane to the site and vice versa. I can't see any entrances on that side of the site. The implication of that might be that actually Pimple Lane will be completely unaffected should this development take place. Is that the case? Have I understood things correctly?
So the main access to the site will be the B4100, and that's where the main access for all vehicular traffic will take place. HGVs, deliveries, employees, etc. What's being referred to is there is a maintenance access there, which will be to gain access, I would imagine, to look after the land here and any landscaping, possibly to the buildings, but it will be my understanding is it will be very rarely used and will only be used for maintenance purposes.
Okay, that's useful clarification. Thank you for that one.
Second question relates to the weighting you've given. The weighting you've given to the employment arguments are significant. Let me just get to my summary where the impact the weighting you've given to the question of local employment and so on, jobs, etc., is significant. But in relation to the litany of CS5, 7, 9, AS10, the intrusion into the countryside and impact on the landscape, you've given that substantial. Could you, in simple terms for me, explain why you felt the need to give one significant and the other substantial?
I mean, ultimately, it's a planning judgment for the decision maker. So how, and in apportioning weight to those particular elements, it was a judgment that's been undertaken by myself as the case officer. Now, members, as the decision maker, will have to apportion their own weight to these individual elements and may well come to a different opinion as the planning officer does.
Okay, thank you. Final
question is highways question, page 58. The modelling concludes that the proposed development will not have a severe impact on the surrounding local road network. And then in the following paragraph, that jumps to being that the proposed development will not have a detrimental, bracket, severe impact. How do you get from, so, start again. If it's not going to have a severe impact, what sort of impact is it going to have? What's less than severe? Does it not have any impact? It's just like it didn't happen? Or if it did happen and there is some impact, how close to severe is it?
I'd just add, did you see there was a reference to local road network and is that what you're asking? Okay, fine. So could you answer that question then in respect of the severity of the impacts on the local road network and on what is described as the surrounding highway network, please?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we are in the hands of the Highway Authority and their assessment of the application. So they have responded with a no objection. And in terms of the reference to severe impact, that is made reference to in the NPPF, where it talks about highway safety, or if it doesn't have a severe impact on the highway network. I think I've got... Yes, sorry, let me just read out the paragraph for you. So this is paragraph 116 of the NPPF. So development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network following mitigation would be severe, taking into account all reasonable future scenarios. So on the basis of the assessment that's been undertaken by the Highways Authority, they are not coming back to us on highway safety grounds, and they're saying that it wouldn't be a severe impact. So on that assessment, they've raised no objection.
Okay, so there's some useful questions there. Councillor Harvey, thank you for that. While I wait to see if somebody else puts their hand up, I've just got a question for you, Neil. During the presentation that Mr. Rhodes made, he referred to the need for a significant amount of this type of employment land. And the figure that he put out there, I think, as I noted it at the time, was something like 265 hectares. I might be mistaken, but it sounds like an awful lot. And I haven't seen any references to that scale of need. Could you help me understand that a little better? Where that figure's coming from? Is it over the life of the next 20 years, or where's that figure coming from? Did you pick that up as well? Yeah. You did.
Sorry, yes, I did, and it's also referred to in the update sheet as well, in reference to that. So I think in terms of the need, the committee report on page 44 talks about the 75 to 125 hectares of strategic employment land. And Mr. Rose did mention the figure of 125, which is correct. So that is for the South Warwickshire for the period 2021 to 2045. So that includes Warwick and Stratford districts. Mr. Rose also made reference to, I think it was for 140 hectares as well. I think that's correct.
Sorry, Neil, can I just stop you a second? Because I struggled to find that. For anybody wanting to follow it, it's page 44.
44.
South Warwickshire Local Plan, second paragraph.
So that's the strategic employment land. Now, Mr. Rose also made reference to 140, which isn't in the committee report, but it's made reference in the update sheet. And that is specifically in relation to Stratford district, and it's on non-strategic sites. And that is referred to in the update sheet.
Yeah, Neil, I can see that. Thank you. Just a point of clarification on that then. So do we assess this as a strategic site or a non-strategic site, or a bit of both?
We've assessed it as a strategic site. Officers have, because of the size, so it's over 25 hectares.
Right.
And because of the building size as well. So that's why reference was made to that in respect of the figure of 75 to 125 hectares. It's worth reading the update sheet just in respect of the first point, because reference was also made in the applicant's letter to the big box units on non-strategic sites, and then the small units on strategic sites as well.
Okay, so I suppose just for the benefit of the members, does this lead us to conclude that in fact there's a greater need for this type of accommodation than perhaps was set out in your report in the first place?
I think that the committee report outlines it in terms of the strategic sites. In terms of if you're looking at strategic need and non-strategic need, then yeah, you could have a look at that joint figure. But because of the size of the application site, we were looking at it in terms of strategic.
Okay, I think that helps. I mean, the only thing I would respond to on that is to say that developments of this nature are just not one type of building, are they? They can meet many needs, not just one specific need. So when you talk about strategic and non-strategic, you're talking about the size of the site, not necessarily what's actually on that site.
Yeah, and as the applicant said, they're for flexible uses as well, and that there are, unit building 4 is divided into five smaller units.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for that clarification. Around the table, any further questions? Councillor Harding, it must be something to do with the paramedics.
Paramedics modelling.
Yeah, okay, off you go.
Paramics, in this case. Yeah, sorry to bang on about Junction 12, because it has only just been sorted out. Did the modelling take into account the 3,000 houses about to be built at Gaydon Lighthorn, or was it just specifically for the impact that this development would have?
So I'll clarify my answer. I'm not a highways engineer. I'm not an expert on paramedics modelling. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But my understanding is that model takes into account committed development and allocations as well. So it wouldn't have just taken into account this development on its own. It would have taken in a whole raft of development. What I would say in terms of the impact on that specific junction is there's been a lot of negotiation with National Highways as well as the county, and National Highways did request additional information from the applicant to assess this, which was submitted in order to reach their conclusion of no objection.
Does that help? I'm just wondering if you've got any further questions on highways, we might actually need some paramedics. Are you all right with that, Councillor Harding?
Yeah,
or do you want to follow up?
Sorry to press for more detail.
It's all right, it's fine.
You've given us 83 pages of it, which is fantastic, and it's a lot of work. Thank you. But I'm still interested to know where these movements are going to come from in the main, from which direction, and at what times of day, and is there a peak? And what effect is that going to have on Gaydon?
Can I just add to that? So, Neil, so Councillor Harding's asked you that question about where the vehicles are coming from, but is that's part of the modelling, presumably, that the Highways England or National Highways Group and the County Council Highways have looked at in order to determine that they haven't an objection?
Yeah, absolutely. They would have looked at issues such as peak and the traffic movements, coming from. I would imagine the majority will come off the motorway into the access, but again, I'm no highways modeller. I'll be perfectly honest.
I don't know if we should sort of speculate on where they come, but the point is that the modelling has been done and the consultation response has come back based upon that modelling. So I don't think it's right for us to try and get into detail about the modelling, much as you perhaps would love to do that. But
I do like to dig.
I know you love it. Yeah,
which is why I asked the applicant rather than the officer, because
yeah.
I knew this would be the response.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going on to Councillor Adam. Are we on highways or are we on landscape or something else?
Moving away from highways.
Excellent.
It was one on landscape.
Great.
And I just want to, obviously it's a main crux of the report, and having reviewed it in detail, I just want to make sure I'm just clarifying. In terms of the strategic allocation that's already within the core strategy, that is obviously outside of, this site is outside of that. And this site goes effectively up to Gaydon Village, built up area boundary. I just want to understand the weight that is attributed to that proximity, I'd say, probably in both directions, because I think the landscape impact on the agricultural nature is one thing, but I just want to understand the weight that its proximity to the built-up area boundary holds, and also how, just probably for more sense of context, how the strategic allocation that's already within the core strategy considered that, being that it's obviously slightly further away.
Well, the land isn't allocated for development. It's outside the strategic land. It's outside the village built-up boundary. Therefore, it's considered to be open countryside, and therefore it would be assessed as open countryside. The land allocated to the north for JLR is undeveloped, so therefore it has to be assessed at the baseline as it currently stands, which is farmland and it's in agricultural use. So therefore the landscape assessment, and that's been tested through case law, would have to be based on the fact that it is agricultural land in an agricultural setting in open countryside, and therefore it's deemed to be harmful.
Just very quick follow-up on that. I suppose, thank you for that, that's enlightening. I suppose I just want to make sure I understand, because particularly looking at various applications, sometimes a consideration is how settlements start to be joined together. And essentially this seems to be encroaching into that sort of space. Is that a distinctive aspect of the assessment that you've carried out? Or is it more, as you say, it's currently in a parcel which is undeveloped around it?
Well, it's not allocated in the current core strategy, and therefore it's considered to be development in open countryside. We did look at the proposals, and we were more minded that the open space was more appropriate being adjacent to Gaydon, but there were some concerns about the landscape treatments changing potentially character, and therefore that could be also harmful. So, you know, there is a bit of typology that is incorrect, and my assessment was that it should have actually taken a more farmland typology than a Fowden Parklands typology. So therefore that was also assessed as potentially being harmful.
Thank you.
Are you on landscape, by any chance? Could I just follow Councillor Adam then? During the presentation from Neil, there were some slides shown of the Burton Dasset Hills, and I asked a question about the distance away from those views. I'm actually interested in the final slide as well that you put up, Neil, which showed a photograph of the bridge over the motorway and the proximity of the site to the motorway. And I wondered if you could put that up, because I think what I'd like to get a feel for is the context of the view over this land when we consider what is likely to come forward strategically on the JLR land. It wasn't that one; it was the one with the motorway bridge. So that was the one. Yeah, I think somebody referred to it with lighting on it. Or something. So that's the view there. What would the view look like in the other direction? I'm just wondering, because I'm trying to get a sense of the context of this in how we see this area evolving, I suppose.
Well, we have to assess it as actual agricultural land as it stands, because nothing has come forward on that land to date. So therefore, as a baseline, it's open countryside in a farming use. We can't speculate what it might be, because we don't
even though it's clearly allocated, strategically allocated alongside the motorway.
Even though it's clearly allocated, we can't speculate because we don't have any details to make that assessment on. So therefore, we have to take the baseline as it currently presents.
You're not adding anything to that point, Neil? No? Okay. All right. Councillor Harvey, on to something else, hopefully.
Thank you, Chairman. At page 67, preface to my remark or my question with the comment concerning Councillor Mills of his litany of 9 reasons. His first relates to flooding. My question relates to Severn Trent and their lack of pumping capacity. The way of getting around their problem seems to be the imposition of a condition that the scheme couldn't be operated if it was consented to. It couldn't be operated until Severn Trent had put in their infrastructure and sorted it out. My question is, how, in the real world, are we really saying that Severn Trent, with its capital programme, which may go on for years and years, I'm speaking from experience in my ward, can go on for years and years and years before a date is determined for any particular project? Are we really saying we're going to impose a condition on this application that it can't be developed, can't be occupied, can't be used until Severn Trent have actually sorted their pumping station problem out? I'm just wondering how practical that condition would be in reality.
I mean, in terms of the application, what Severn Trent have expressed concerns. They haven't raised objection to the application. And as the committee report says, under current legislation, the developer has a right to connect to the public foul network. So there would be a way of doing it by imposing a condition. It would be for the applicants then to come forward with that detail. It's the same for the surface water drainage. It's not an objection in principle to this at all. What they want to see is the detail, and that's what would come forward as part of a condition.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, Severn Trent are obviously statutorily obliged to offer their services and to facilitate development where it comes forward. I don't think members of this committee can determine the application other than in the expectation that Severn Trent will fulfil their statutory duties.
Okay, thanks, David. Any further questions? Anything from this side of the table? No, I'm just double checking. Because as soon as I look away from you, someone's going to put their hand up. I know they are. No, okay, you've given it a good go. On this side, you finished, in which case thank you for those points of clarification, Neil and Richard and David. Okay, so we can move on to having a debate about this application. You've heard from objectors, you've heard from the applicant's agent, and you've heard from the case officer and read all nearly 80 odd pages. I congratulate Neil on winning the award for probably the longest report we've had at this committee, certainly since I've been chairing it, and possibly in your time as well, Councillor Adam. So who would like to start to talk about it? Thoughts? Councillor Eden.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo your sentiments about a fantastic and detailed report, so thank you for that, Neil. Where I'm at, it's not allocated for development. There is no demand, potentially, as Councillor Mills pointed out. JLR haven't come forward with their sort of opposing mirror view. I personally have mixed feelings about mixed-use sites in terms of how I've seen them evolve around by where I'm from, where you get a massive warehouse and then some mixed-use units, and then a full application comes in and it's lots of very large warehouses because the precedent is effectively set. And then you have a different company working that begins with an A, very close to where you live. Where I'm at, the weight of almost all of the adult population, I think Councillor Claxton said, it's not for the people of Gaydon. I don't think it's for me. To be perfectly honest, I'll take the bull by the horns and propose that we go with refusal in line with the officer's report and the updates in the update sheet that correct that.
Right, thank you, Councillor Eden. That's a first proposal. I have some thoughts about what you just presented. I shall just hold my fire for a second and call in Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. The site visit I paid, driving around in my car around the area, was very helpful. One of the factors which it led me to appreciate, which is mentioned in the report, is the undulating lie of the land. And it isn't until you drive around the area that you realise the criticism the officers made of the design of the proposal was not terribly sympathetic to the landscape in terms of undulation. As I drove down the B4100 from Lighthorn down towards the site, Gaydon itself as a village is hardly noticeable because it lies in a dip, whereas the site lies in front of you, and it hits you. It's a panoramic view. As you drive down that road, which is the main road through Lighthorn, it is a panoramic view. Units 5 and 6 together, in my terms, are the equivalent of almost, depending on the size of your football pitch, but I've taken the Hawthorns as the standard. This is just 5 and 6, the buildings are the equivalent of 7.5 football pitches. And 18 metres in old money is 59 feet. These buildings, viewed from the B4100, would be enormous. That takes no account of the landscaping of the car parking arrangements that go round about it. So in my terms, this is highly visually impactful. The question of the support for the objectors from the parish, we've always said it's not the question of the volume of people who object that we take any account of. In fact, quite often we come to decisions which aren't locally popular. The question here, however, seems to me to be how you evaluate the impact on the landscape set against the arguments in favour of employment. And the people of Gaydon are not stupid. They know how important the local industry is, but they also know how they value the local landscape. I think they've come to the right conclusion that the impact of this would outweigh the benefits of the employment that would be provided. I know that those people who would take the other point of view would obviously come to a different point of view, but they have the opportunity that if this is refused, they have the opportunity to argue their case again at appeal. For me, the officers have weighed these up, and it's not all one, it's not black and white. This is a finely judged view they've come to. They don't come to the conclusion about landscape having substantial weight or being given substantial weight lightly. I take note of that, and on that basis, they've been struggling with this, and I do commend Mr. Henderson for his report. It is the longest and extremely thorough. They've been tossing this around for 2 years and more, and before they've come to this conclusion, this recommendation. It's not come too lightly. We've all heard the argument, we've read the papers. On that basis, I'm prepared to second Councillor Eden's proposal to refuse the application on the grounds that for the reasons given in the report as recommended by the officers.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. You're right. Councillor Mr. Hempstead's report is very thorough. I think it's finely balanced as well. I've got to say that because I think we've identified this as an area where we've got availability of future housing, and people will potentially move there if they think they've got good jobs on the doorstep. And we've identified a need for this type of development. It's going to always be difficult to find the right sort of site for this that's alongside a motorway, really well connected. that isn't visually harmful. It's a question then of the degree of harm balanced against the benefit, the public benefit of actually having this type of development in this location particularly. Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for the report. It was like reading a book when I read it. Very detailed. In terms of what I heard today, I've heard just some comments that I've picked out. Councillor Claxton stated the buildings would be overbearing, and obviously seemed shocked when he saw the actual photos. Mr. Winter, Mr. Hughes stated as local residents that that the look and feel of the site would be overbearing, the sounds, the potential fumes. Obviously, you heard from the applicant that obviously it would support employment, but then obviously looking at the recommendation and the balance, I have to say it was a really tough one, as Councillor Harvey stated, but I follow what Councillor Eden and Councillor Harvey have said in terms of refusing.
Thank you. I think I've got Councillor Scorer and Councillor Hench-Serifin first. I've got you first on the list here.
Thank you, Chair.
Sue.
I would like to thank Neil on this report. It kept me occupied for many hours, reading it through and reading it through again. And what I've heard, I think I will be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. Just to help you out, being ward member, the photograph of going to Gaydon from the bridge with the blue outline pencil line, Chair, you questioned about the what it would look the other side, because that is in strategic land. My understanding, it was going to be a test track for a 4x4 JLR, so I don't think there would be any buildings on that right-hand side going towards Gaydon. That's my understanding as a ward member. But I agree, and I think what I've picked out from the report is going to cause substantial and demonstrable harm to the landscape, and I think when you use that kind of wording, I will go with the officer's recommendation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Scorer. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I mirror a lot of the comments that have been said, but I just wanted to raise, I suppose, my view from the representations I've heard. I'm not ignorant to the economic arguments that have been put forward, and I appreciate where they're coming from on that. But I think the representations from Councillor Claxton have been quite moving to how this how the landscape impact will be contextualised with where it is, and I think that's very relevant, because not only is it in the open countryside with agricultural on agricultural land, it is directly adjacent to a village, and that is how our landscape is defined often. And given the scale of development, both past and in the future, in this part of the district, I feel that Gaydon deserves its right to its own identity, and that the encroachment of this site directly up to the boundary of that is part of the context which I find really does add significance to the landscape impact. Which what I was asking specifically from the landscape officer on, and I think they alluded to that in a way that I felt made it significant again to me, because we are looking at it from a macro scale often, but I think we need to remember the representations that we have heard have been local, and for good reason, because those are the most impacted by it. So yeah, I will support the officer's recommendations, but I just want to raise that because I found out of all the many representations we've had tonight, that was probably the most moving.
Right, thank you, Councillor Eden. Councillor Fleming, you've got wanted to speak.
Yeah, I support all the planning reasons that my colleagues here have been talking about, but I've got 3 family members who work at JLR and 5 close friends that work at JLR. They cannot recruit locally. They've been trying, and they're employing people from Wolverhampton, Coventry, and wherever. They can't employ locally because they can't find the people. So saying we're going to create 1,800 jobs. Okay, they're going to build some houses, but we're going to find those people. Those are very skilled jobs that, you know, I mean, I worked in automated warehouse logistics for years, and these are very specialist jobs, and finding them is a difficult thing. So for me, apart from the real planning reasons, I see that as an anti for why I would vote for this anyway. So from that perspective, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Okay, I think that's quite an interesting perspective on it. I have a slightly different perspective because you know where my ward is, and people have moved into the area because there are jobs in that location. So it's a bit chicken and egg, really, isn't it? I suppose, you know, if there aren't any jobs there, people aren't going to move to that area because there's a job for them. If there are good jobs, they might move from other parts of the country into that area, but that's where you need to provide housing for them so that they don't have an extended commute. Anyway, I think we're at a point now where we could move to a decision. We have a proposal from Councillor Eden to make a decision in accordance with the recommendation of the officers, which is to refuse, principally on the grounds that whilst we recognise the public benefits coming in from the economic advantages and social benefits, the proposal are simply not enough to outweigh the harm on this landscape area and the impact on Gaydon. And that was seconded, I think, by Councillor Harvey, is that right? So on that basis, for application 23010540 OUT, this is the land south of junction 12. I'd like to take a vote from members, please, if you'd like to show your cards in favour of the proposal. So that's unanimous. So just to say, committee resolves in that case to refuse application 23010540 OUT, land to the south of junction 12 of the M40. And we've heard an awful lot tonight. And can I just add, whilst we've thanked the officers for their submissions, I should also like to thank the parish council. I should like to thank the residents. I should like to thank the applicants as well for coming along to explain the details of this proposal, and Councillor Mills as well. So thank you all very much for that. On that note, we're going to take a short adjournment, probably for 10 minutes, to get a coffee and a refresh, and then we'll get back onto the agenda. Thank you all very much. Howard? Right, well, thank you. We're live again, everybody. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is application 2501259 FUL, which is land 10 St Michael's Road, Claverden, near Warwick. And the presenting officer is Eleanor Bass. Eleanor, over to you to take us through the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a full planning application for the erection of a new dwelling. The application site is located in Claverden, as identified by the black dot on the plan, and is within the defined built-up area boundary of the local service village. The site is accessed off St Michael's Road down an existing driveway, which serves 5 new dwellings to the rear. The light green dotted areas denote group TPOs, with the pink lines showing the boundary of the conservation area. The site is also washed over by the West Midlands Greenbelt, but it lies outside of the conservation area. This is an aerial view of the application site, roughly outlined in red and showing surroundings. You can see the construction of the 5 bungalows to the rear of the site, as well as the 2 bungalows to the west. To the south are the dwellings fronting onto St Michael's Road. This is the proposed block plan of the site and shows the relationship with the neighbours. This is the layout of the bungalow with 2 bedrooms, parking to the side and a rear garden. Here we have the front and rear elevations of the dwelling. It is to be constructed in brick with some vertical timber cladding to the frontage. These are the side elevations. Again, members will note the vertical timber cladding to one of the side elevations. Now have a few photos of the site and surroundings. This is taken from St Michael's Road, looking at the entrance to the site. The entrance to the left serves the 2 existing bungalows at Churchfield Close. The property on the right is 10 St Michael's Road, and the access road serves the 5 new dwellings to the rear. We're now stood further up St Michael's Road with the access to the application site on the right, in the approximate location of the cones. Stood now on the access drive, the application site is located on the right behind the fencing. This is now looking left and showing the 2 bungalows at Churchfield Close. We're now stood in the application site where the dwelling would be constructed, with the rear of number 10 St Michael's Road in the background. Again, stood in the application site in what would be the garden area. The rear of number 12 St Michael's Road is in the background. And panning around to the right, this also shows the proposed garden area for the bungalow. There are several updates set out in the update sheet, most notably being the revised wording to the conclusion to the highways section, clarifying that it is not considered the proposals would give rise to highway safety concerns. Chair, the recommendation is to grant the application subject to the conditions set out on pages 103 and 104 of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Right, so we have some speakers on this. First of all, we have Councillor Martin Fairley of Claverden Parish Council. Good evening, Councillor Fairley. Thank you for coming along. You're objecting to this proposal. So you'd have 3 minutes to speak, and then members might ask you questions after. And I shall give you 30 seconds before the end. Could you turn the microphone on, please, Miss Councillor? To the right, it's the right-hand button. Oh. No, just hang on a second. We will sort you out. So. That's better. Okay, so you can explain your concerns.
Chair, planners and councillors, good evening. The application is in connection with a new house at the bottom of a relatively small and narrow garden in the centre of Claverdon. This does not meet with the requirements of Claverdon's neighbourhood plan, policy H4, use of garden land, which I hope still has some planning weight. The reason it doesn't meet it is because the neighbourhood plan requires such developments in garden land to preserve and not cause detrimental harm to the amenities of neighbouring properties. The parish council considers that it will in fact cause detrimental harm. Also, the neighbourhood plan requires such developments to have adequate land to be available, which again the parish council consider is not the case here. It's not a large garden, you know, surrounded by hedges and trees and the like, where infilling would be possible. We consider, or the parish council considers, that not much has changed since the previous application in March this year, when the parish council objected and the planners refused planning permission. We appreciate that there are now additional challenges and pressures from central government regarding the loss of the 5-year housing land supply. But this is just one house that unfortunately will not significantly contribute towards Stratford's housing land policy. As previously stated by the planners, it is likely to result in poor standard of amenity for the future residents of the new building, i.e. harmful shading and seasonal nuisance from a very mature oak tree and a mature leyland cypress tree that are in close proximity to the proposed dwelling. This is contrary to NPPF paragraph 135F, which states planning policies and decisions should promote a high standard of amenity.
That's 30 seconds remaining now.
Existing and future users. There are also some TPOs. These trees have a TPO, and MPPF policy 136 states that existing trees are to be retained whenever possible, and I think we have concern that during construction and long term the trees may be damaged, or the tree roots. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Right now, members, do you have any questions for Councillor Fairley, please? Yeah, Councillor Harvey has one, and Councillor Parry.
Councillor Fairley, I'm confused now. One of your objections under your policy H4 is that this will cause detrimental harm to the amenities, and you've talked about shading.
Sorry.
I can't understand. The trees are there. The trees already cause shade at certain times of the year and times of the day and night, etc. How are they harmful? To whom are they harmful if this proposal is accepted?
Sorry. Thank you for your question. It's not really the shading issue is potential loss of amenity to people who might live in this new property. Okay? But according to the neighbourhood plan, which requires such developments to preserve and not cause detrimental harm to amenities of neighbouring properties, i.e. number 12, who you're going to hear from shortly, the new property is right at the bottom of number 10's garden, which is right across with patios, and you'll probably hear more about this later. So it's the new property, the new bungalow, will be at a very pleasant, quiet spot for the neighbours in number 12, which we felt, and I think they also, well, I'm sure you'll hear from them shortly, would just be a loss of
amenity. Yeah, I think that's the point. That H4 refers to the amenity impact on neighbouring properties.
Yeah, sorry if I didn't explain that very well.
I've got H4 up here.
And also, sorry, H4 also does recommend that, I mean, the neighbourhood plan does encourage development in garden lands, but you really need a decent size of garden where these issues
I don't think the size of garden is specified in H4, but we can come on to that with the officers.
Yeah.
Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. I'm a little bit confused as well, I'm afraid, apart from the H4 issue, which fortunately Councillor Harvey's covered. But also your policy H1 highlights that the parish will support limited infill housing development within the village boundary. The proposal in front of us is a limited infill housing development within the parish boundary. So can you sort of explain why you're moving away from policy H1 in these circumstances?
I don't think we are moving away from it. I think it's the underwriting thing is whether such a development would cause detrimental harm to the amenities, the long term, for the rest of the neighbour's life, with the proximity of a house and patios at the bottom of their garden, just across the fence.
So that will be H4, not H1.
Well, H1, yes, limited infill is supported. Yeah.
Okay,
but it has to be the
Councillor
right, I would suggest,
thank you,
the
Councillor.
right type of infill.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fairley. No further questions. I've got a quick question for you. Do you have a housing needs survey? Because I noticed the NDP was 2019.
Yeah.
Could you just update us on the housing needs survey and the need? This is a 2-bedroom bungalow, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you just explain what your situation is with housing needs?
Housing needs really is what is, well, first of all, Chair, if I could just say we're just about to update or go through a process of updating the housing needs survey. What is really required in Claverdon is affordable housing for young families. It's a very prosperous area. The houses that you see on this on the television just now, the 5 bungalows that the parish council that are now being built and occupied, 3 are occupied. The parish council objected to those. The planners also objected to those. They are selling for almost £1 million each. They're bungalows. So the type of housing we really need is affordable housing.
Okay, I've just got the housing needs stuff up on the NDP here, so I can see that. Right, thank you. There's a further question from Councillor Hencher-Seraphin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good evening. I see there are 7 letters of objection. Are they close neighbours, these people, do you know?
Not sure off the top of my head, sorry, Councillor. Maybe that could be answered by...
Yeah, thank you.
If the case officer might be able to help with that. Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right, next...
Do I switch this off?
Oh, you can do. No, you know, leave it as it's fine. Yes, you can't really break it. I don't think you can break it. Okay, so... yeah, the next speaker is Mr. Richard Pratt, who's, I think, the neighbour at number 12, correct. St Michael's. Good evening, Mr. Pratt, and welcome. Thank you. And thank you for coming along. I understand that you have some representations to make about why you have concerns about this and you're objecting to it. So you've got 3 minutes.
I have I submitted some photographs. Could I ask that this be...
Hang on, we'll give you a second and then...
I won't have time to refer to them one by one, so could I ask they just... I've flipped up...
You want them rolled through?
Roll through about 40 seconds at a time, just one...
40 seconds?
Half a minute, you know, at a time.
30 seconds.
They are just views showing the site and of our garden.
Well, Eleanor will do that, so...
Thank you.
How many are there altogether, Eleanor?
4.
4. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right. And so when you're ready, and I will give you 30 seconds sort of lead in as you come towards the end of your 3 minutes. Okay.
The Leyland cypress was important enough to be included in the group TPO.
Well, Mr. Pratt, we're trying to pick it up on live feed, so just sit a little closer. You notice that I'm quite close to mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Leyland cypress was important enough to be included in the group TPO in 2020. When refusing the last application, the case officer decided the tree's removal was not justified. The applicant's updated tree survey does not say that the tree's condition has worsened or give additional justification for its removal. It seems removal is only required to facilitate the scheme, the construction.
We're going to get that photograph up in a second.
Why,
is that the one?
Why does the case officer now make no objection and not consider framework paragraph 136, which says existing trees should be retained wherever possible? The refusal stated that the TPO trees would cause harmful shading and seasonal nuisance, which would result in a poor standard of amenity for future residents and long-term future pressure for removal of the TPO trees, contrary to CS9 and framework paragraph 136. She now says that shading would still cause some amenity issues and the proposals would not fully comply with CS9 and BE1, but she has completely ignored seasonal nuisance and consequent pressure to remove the TPO oak and has not referred to framework paragraph 136 or to 135, which requires a high standard of amenity. AS10, which the case officer now says is one of the most important policies, states all proposals must be assessed against the need to minimise impact on the occupiers and users of properties in the area. H4 of the neighbourhood plan restricts development of garden land to suitable sites that will preserve the amenities of neighbouring properties. Regarding our concerns about loss of privacy, noise and disturbance affecting enjoyment of our property, the case officer makes no reference to AS10 and H4. She does not make it clear that the bungalow will be extremely close to a 4-metre stretch of our side boundary with a patio immediately behind our rear boundary. She refers to our garden being 25 metres long, with gardens on either side. 25 metres might be considered very long on a new estate, but not in a rural village. A bungalow so close to us would be a very different proposition from just having adjoining gardens. The greatest impact would be on the most private and most secluded part of our garden, the only area with natural shade from our historic apple tree. Construction works could kill our mature beech boundary hedge, which could not be replaced. Its loss would be aesthetically detrimental, remove screening and take away privacy. In supporting just one housing unit, the case officer gives insufficient weight and consideration to key policies, especially framework policies. The proposal has not been well designed and its adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh any benefits.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Pratt, thank you very much for that. I have a question from Councillor Hencher-Serafin.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'll ask the question again. These 7 objections, are they very close to this?
They are residents in St Michael's Road, Churchfield Close. I think that's the only streets. So they're immediately, within, yes, very short distance indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any further questions? Nothing about the trees.
I wasn't watching. Did the photographs roll?
Yes, they did.
So sorry.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
they did, and we could see the trees taken in November, I think, actually. So there's not much leaf on them. Councillor Parry, did you have a question?
Well, yes, I did really, because I found it very difficult to comprehend the photos in terms of context. And I would just find it very helpful if we could just go through the photographs and our speaker could just explain the issue, because all we had was some lovely pictures of the garden, but I didn't actually fully appreciate what...
Where they were taken from.
Yes,
yeah.
and the impact. So I think it would be good for our speaker if we could just run through very briefly,
very well,
just to say, this is so-and-so, because
Okay.
they were lovely pictures, but I couldn't
Yeah,
see
well,
the context of the
since we've got them, and Mr. Pratt has given up his evening to come and raise his concerns and explain them to us. Mr. Pratt, do you want to just tell us what these pictures are then?
Yes, so this is taken from probably a third of the way up the garden from the back of the house. There's my good self tending the fruit plot. The centre left, you see a purple strip, that's the beech hedge. That extends considerable distance out of shot to the left, down towards the house. Immediately, literally a few feet on the other side of that hedge will be the wall of the bungalow. Its footings will almost certainly go straight through all the routes.
Okay, well, all right, we can ask clarification on the case officer because she's got the plans. Sure. So the next photograph, this will be you picking the gooseberries, will it?
Could I just add that the timber fence that runs along the back, that would have the patio immediately behind it. That is just a general view of the garden, again, from near our back door, just showing again that the garden is not enormous. It is very well tended. You know, there's a lot gone into it.
Yeah.
And the apple tree and particularly the oak can be seen in the background. And the apple tree is where we, for 20 years, have sat and enjoyed countless meals.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, as a credit to you, it looks lovely from here, even though it's a winter shot. And the next one, Eleanor?
That is from one of our rear bedroom windows, looking over to the left, the garden number 10, and about pretty much on the centre line, running across, is a green hedge. That is a hedge which would divide what would be left of number 10's garden in the foreground from the bungalow, which will be behind it in the rear.
So is the Lalandi, is that where the new bungalow would be?
Yes, the Lalandi is the tall evergreen sticking up the back, and the oak tree is to the right of it.
So the bungalow would be by the evergreen?
The bungalow would be...
The other side,
yes,
by
the side of the
okay, and the
Lalandi.
last one?
And that's just a slightly wider view, again, showing number 10's garden on the left with the privet hedge going across, which would divide the garden from the bungalow, and then to the right is our garden, and obviously running
lovely.
in the bindle is the beach hedge.
Thank you very much for that. That helped, Councillor Parry. Thank you very much for the question. Any further questions? Mr. Pratt, thank you very much for your coming along and explaining your concerns. Okay. So the next speaker we have, hang on a second. The agent for the application, which I didn't recognise. I recognised you, Councillor Parker, and I thought you were in such a hurry to get up and make sure that I didn't forget you. Yeah, thank you. I will come on to you, don't worry, Councillor Parker. Yes, Gary Moss, good evening, Mr. Moss. You're the agent for the development, so if you could explain to us a little bit more about it, help us understand the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Well, you've got 6 minutes, by the way.
Yes, I hope you won't need them. This is a revised application to one that was submitted earlier in the year, to which your officers had raised a number of objections. In summary, those were a poor design and layout, impact on trees and overshadowing, lack of information regarding biodiversity net gain, and also to do with vehicular tracking along the access road. This latest application has sought to resolve all of those 4 previous issues. In terms of the principle of development, we are situated within Claverden, a local service village, sustainable location. The development is appropriate in terms of greenbelt, in terms of limited infilling, and we would argue it makes best use of garden land, and is also very much characteristic of the area. You've got the 2 bungalows that immediately front this site, effectively replicating a duplicate layout, and obviously the more recent development to the north with the 5 bungalows also there shown on the screen by your officers. In terms of the design and layout, we've addressed all the fundamental issues, primarily in terms of design, and we welcome your officer's support in terms of that. There was sort of minor layout issues involving sort of bin collection, the parking of vehicles, which have also been addressed. In terms of the design, and just to say that the architects have taken on those concerns. We've created what we think is a high quality, low impact and environmentally responsible infill dwelling. At the heart of that, it is a commitment to environmental sustainability. We're looking at a no-dig foundation system, low-carbon timber frame construction, renewable technologies and biodiversity enhancement. We are hopeful that this design will achieve near zero carbon performance. That's both in terms of its build, but also looking in terms of its actual construction methodology also. In terms of the trees and overshadowing, this application was submitted with both an updated and revised tree report confirming that other than the Leylande, which is being removed, the oak tree in particular will be protected during construction, and through overshadowing assessments undertaken, including video sort of assessment modelling, it was clear that there would be no adverse impact in terms of overshadowing. More importantly, the overshadowing, there will be no future sort of pressures on that oak tree, which is obviously subject to the wider group TPO area. The loss of the Leylande is unfortunate, but as is confirmed in your officer's report, although clearly visible, it is a non-native species, and when assessed against the other TPO trees of that group order, it was deemed acceptable to be removed in this instance. Any limited harm from that, we hope, will be overcome by the benefits in any event of the new dwelling. Ecology and biodiversity have also been addressed. There was also concerns raised about bin collection. You'll note from your officer's planning balance judgment that that was another area of concern. Highways obviously have no objection to the development, and although refuse collection could be taken from St Michael's Road, refuse lorries will actually travel up that road to serve those 5 dwellings behind. So ultimately, refuse collection would be a roadside collection outside the property, just as a minor point. The council don't have a 5-year land supply. There is a presumption in favour of sustainable development. The location is highly sustainable, the build is highly sustainable, and although it is an open market dwelling, it is a 2-bed property, so hopefully will be a more affordable than the larger bungalows that were referred to by the previous speakers. Overall, we welcome your officer's support for the application, and although relatively small, the benefits of this scheme will clearly and demonstrably outweigh those limited harm that you've heard from other speakers today, and we hope that you carry on with your officer's recommendation to grant planning subject to those conditions, which will ultimately protect all those matters that have been previously raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moss. Okay, members, questions for Mr. Moss. Councillor Hench-Serafin.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Gary. Can you just tell me roughly the size of the garden to this bungalow would be?
In terms of the square meterage of the garden, or its depth? I think it's in the planning officer's report. Let me just...
432 what? Square metres?
It is...
The plot's 430 square metres. It's in the report. The looks fairly square, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the footprint...
200 square metres on the garden.
Yeah. Thank you.
The square root of 200. Is that what you're going to come up with?
Yep. Okay. Well,
are you happy with that? 200 square metres, Councillor Hench-Serafin. Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Moss, you made reference to in providing context, you made reference to the 2 bungalows across the road. Could you draw a comparison in terms of size between either or both of those two bungalows and the proposal in front of us, please?
Again, it is set out, I believe, in your officer's report. There was a lot of discussion in respect of character and appearance of the area, of which obviously we've taken reference to those bungalows. I think if you just look at the plan above, you'll see from a footprint perspective, they are comparable in size. If anything, one would argue a single dwelling on that plot is actually larger than the two dwellings located off the Churchfields site opposite. So from that point of view, we would consider. Just noting the officer's report, they calculated that the two bungalows opposite the site, Churchill Close, have a plot area of approximately 350 square metres.
Smaller.
Whereas we have a plot of approximately 430 square metres, if that provides you with a comparison.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I had just one question myself. Forgive me, but I'd just like to understand what no-dig foundations are. Would you mind? Help me understand how that works. So you don't dig, you put the foundations in.
Effectively, there's options such as a piled foundation. So there is disturbance of the ground, clearly, but rather than a trench foundation, which is what you historically see, you have a piled foundation.
And a beam over the top of the piles.
And a beam over, so the amount of disturbance of the ground is significantly less than it would be for a trench foundation.
But I asked the question because the neighbour is obviously concerned about the impact on the hedge. So, okay.
I was just saying it's more to do with the oak tree, per se, than the actual hedgerow itself.
Right. Yeah.
But effectively it has the same, it limits the amount of ground disturbance, the amount of intrusion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moss. We can ask the case officers for details about the oak tree roots protection area. That's it, I think. Thank you very much for your presentation. And so that's the end of the speakers. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, no, it's not. It's panto season, isn't it?
No, he isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. And, oh, yes, it is, Councillor Parker. Good evening, Councillor Parker. You have 5 minutes to talk us through your concerns about this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. So this is the second application for the a dwelling behind number 10 St Michael's Road. And for clarity, I did not object to this application. It was objected to and brought to committee by the parish council. However, having read the report and read the previous report, I wanted to bring to councillors just a strand which went through the previous report, which didn't go through this report, which I thought spoke volumes about the situation SDC currently finds itself in. So forgive me, and please bear in mind, I'm dyslexic, so reading is not something I do really well, but I'm going to try and quote from the previous report, so not the report you received this evening. So here we go. Due to the proximity of the proposed development to mature trees, a poor standard of amenity would result for future occupiers, contrary to the requirements of CS9 and the design principles of the NDP, blah, blah, blah. Next. The amenity of the future residents would be poor due to the proximity and shading of the oak tree, leading to future pressure for removal. Given the constrained nature of the proposed dwelling by trees, it is considered reasonable for the council to have full consideration for these matters and consider long-term effects of the proposed development in respect of pressure for future removal of the oak tree. These are TPO trees, by the way, I'm sure you remember. Overall, it is concluded that the proposed development would lead to unjustified harm and loss of protected trees, as well as poor standard of amenity and long-term future pressure for removal leading to visual harm to the area. So these are quotes from the previous report, and then when I read the report which you've seen this evening, it seemed to have none of that about it, despite the fact that the treatment to the oak tree is unchanged. There was the Leyland cypress, which before in the previous report was described as unjustified to be removed, and now it's being removed. And this is this is not to denigrate the quality of the report. The reports are of a great quality, but it is to reflect on why these have now been played down and reduced, and it strikes me that the reason that they have gone from being a powerful element in the previous report to a bit of a backwater is because of the 5-year land supply, and we know we are under pressure, and there is the intent, I've forgotten the word, that we have to build, and that word's not going to come to me. And so I kind of get that, but what I don't understand is how you can change the report to achieve that. And you know, ultimately, if this site was of such poor quality in terms of the amenity for the person living in that property before, isn't it possible that that is still the case today? So I leave that with councillors to consider, along with all that you've heard on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Parker. And in fact, there's a very useful summary of your concerns in respect particularly of the amenity and the impact on the trees, which did come across really well as you explained it. So, questions for Councillor Parker? I'm looking around the table. Councillor Passingham? Oh, okay. Sorry, you were just, yeah. It's like being in an auction room, isn't it? Councillor Parker, I've just got a question for you. It's in connection with the housing needs in Claverdon, and I am aware that, because we have it up, I've had a look, we're aware that the last survey was some time ago, 2017, but the neighbourhood development plan does seem to identify that there is a demonstrable need for housing in Claverdon. How do you respond to the weight that we should attribute to the need for this type of property when we're considering this application, given that there are these amenity issues that you've raised as well? It's the need in this it's your area, you know what's going on.
It is, and I would just really speak to, as Councillor Fairley spoke to, is that in Claverdon, they have just brought forward these large bungalows, and there is insufficient development, frankly, probably in Claverdon to meet the need of. And when we see the new housing needs survey, I think no one would be surprised to find that there's a need for more housing. But breaking news: one of those bungalows that was referred to is much more than $1 million. I think it's 1.3 million, and it's. And I'm sure other councillors have this in their ward, that it's just very difficult bringing forward housing which is of an affordable nature. So I'm sure these houses will sell, and I'm sure they will be used, but they are not being bought by people that are local, who need this housing. They're being bought down the road.
Thank you for that. I just observe it's actually quite a modest dwelling, small, 2-bedroomed bungalow, and it might suit, I guess, I'm speaking out, somebody might want to downsize from a family home and release some bedrooms to some family, I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation, appreciate it. Right, councillors, I think we've heard all the speakers. Yeah. So now's the opportunity to ask questions. I was just waiting for somebody to come back with, "Oh no, we haven't." But now's the chance to ask points of clarification from the officers. So who would like to start? Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. On page 105 of the report, the bottom diagram of the village, it looks it's got electrical substation. Is that on the site? How big is that electrical substation?
I'm not aware that it is on the site from the site photos and site visit. And the existing site plan, it's not shown on there.
Okay, if you've done a site visit, it's just on there, if you can see it.
You can, yeah. Maybe that's old. And the shape of the application site's interesting, but it's to do with the access, isn't it? Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Parker. Okay. Further questions? Councillor Harvey.
Just for clarity, policy H4 of the relevant NDP reads as follows: development on garden land within the defined village boundary as defined in figure 1 will only be supported if it can be demonstrated that proposals, and then there are 4 legs: A, preserve and enhance the character of its surroundings; B, will not introduce a form of development which is at odds with the existing settlement character or pattern; C, preserve the amenities of neighbouring properties; and D, provide safe arrangements for access and will not result in additional on-road parking. As I read those are 4 legs which all have to be satisfied in order to comply with policy H4. Can the officer confirm, in her view, that this proposal does comply with all 4 of those legs?
Yes, I would agree that the policy is worded in a way that it does need to comply with all 4 of them, with the inclusion of the word "and" at the end of paragraph C. And from the conclusions in my report, I am satisfied that it does meet all of those strands.
May I just also take the opportunity to draw attention to the paragraph at the top of page 94 of members' report, which does indicate the weight to which can be afforded policies within the NDP, given the lack of our 5-year housing land supply.
Thank you. Councillor Ballinger was next, but I'll keep you in reserve for the next question. Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify, just in terms of Councillor Parker mentioned a previous application. Is it only because he mentioned it? I'm asking a question. Is it different, the previous application to this application? Can I just clarify that, please?
Yes, the plans have been revised since the previous refusal. I do have a plan of the refuse scheme. So there have been revisions in terms of, you can see the parking was proposed either side of the bungalow. It was pushed further towards the TPO tree, and we've had additional supporting information as part of this current application that didn't come forward as part of the previous application. So there have been revisions to the scheme through the submission of this current application.
Okay.
Just follow up with what is the additional supporting information?
So we had an updated tree report which had clarified trees on the site, and we had some additional information regarding the sunlight around the site during the day.
It's probably worth just continuing with that line of inquiry. in respect of the amenity that's going to be impacting the property, and that's that particular oak tree and the preservation of its root system. Could you just help us understand that? Is that where you were going, Councillor Padgham, with the tree? Okay, that's fine, because we started on the tree, so I'm just going to carry on with that. Could you just help us understand how this scheme, what the potential impact on that tree is, but more importantly, what we've heard is that tree's got an impact on the amenity of the occupiers of this property, potentially.
This is an extract from the tree survey plan that was submitted with the application. On the right-hand side, we can see the root protection area of the oak tree, which is circled in green. And you can see that the dwelling has been cited to lie outside of that root protection area, as well as the patio area as well.
And the amenity impact on the occupiers of that property from the tree, is the canopy the size of the green circle, the tree zone?
The green circle is the root protection area, not the canopy.
Okay, so how much smaller is the canopy?
This plan on the right-hand side has got potentially an indicative canopy. I wouldn't want to confirm that it's precisely. I'll show you a photo of the tree.
I think so, and I think then the follow-up question to that is, of course, your opinion of the impact on the amenity of the occupiers of this property, because that's what we're really getting to, is what do you think about that impact? As you heard from objectors about this issue, what's your response to those concerns?
Quickly, this is a photo of the oak tree, so you can see that it doesn't necessarily at the moment have a sort of symmetrical appearance and canopy to it. In terms of the impact on the amenity, I think my report has advised that on pages 98 that there may still be some shading to the property in the morning, and therefore there may be some amenity issues and some shading late in the afternoon and in the evening. But I think in the planning balance section and in the conclusion, weighing up the proposals, and in light of the council not having a 5-year housing land supply, officers have concluded that the lack of a 5-year housing land supply outweighs.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to just stop proceedings a second. I'm sorry. I'm kind of going to Councillor Padgham next, and then I'll come back to you, but it's 10 to 9. So at this point in the proceedings, I have to ask you if you're happy to continue beyond the 3 hours, or whether or not you want to stop at 9 o'clock, whether or not you'd like to go up till whatever it takes to hear this and the next one, because there's another agenda item. So can we take a vote? Sorry, Councillor Harvey.
I'm happy to take whatever it takes.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. So who's happy to carry on and see this through, this one and the next one? Because the alternative would be to stop at 9 and defer to the next committee. So we're going to carry on. Thank you for that. Right, question, Councillor Padgham.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the biodiversity net gain and the fact that there will be a sort of detrimental impact to the biodiversity in the area, and then the applicant has to purchase units. And where would these be, and would they stay in the local area?
So, yes, in terms of biodiversity, they have submitted information indicating that they need to purchase off-site units in order to achieve the statutory 10% net gain. That is or would be dealt with through the statutory biodiversity net gain condition that would need to be discharged prior to the commencement of the development, and our colleagues at County Council Ecology will look at the information, the submission at that point, and advise if the units to be purchased is appropriate.
Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Chairman. Page 98, top paragraph, makes reference to the SPD. A simple question, does this proposal comply with all aspects of the SPD?
In regards to Part F of the SPD residential amenity, it is considered that it meets with the separation distances set out within that SPD.
Okay, so there's another question from Councillor Hench-Serafin.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know if this oak tree has ever had any maintenance on reducing the canopy at all?
I'm afraid I'm not aware of that.
Are you thinking because it's grown a bit asymmetrically?
Well, not just that. Near me, there's an oak tree in somebody's garden, which is probably about that size, but every 3 years they have the canopy reduced. If we were likely to grant this, could there be condition on that they would have to do that?
Well, there's a TPO on the tree, isn't there, Eleanor? So any work on the tree has to come forward through that process. Any further questions? Okay, well, you've given this a fair examination. Who would like to start by discussing this application? Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, I was intrigued reading the report by the previous application, because clearly this is based off it and looking at it in its own right. I was particularly intrigued by the points raised by the ward member regarding some of the things which seem to be of less concern now, as it were. And that did surround trees, it did surround residential amenity. I'm glad that we've gone through the differences, because I think that is material and pertinent, and it does show that there has been an improvement of the scheme. But what it comes down to, I mean, reading the previous report, under the TPO section, there's a paragraph that states explicitly, as the council can demonstrate 5-year housing land supply, benefit of an additional dwelling is not considered to outweigh the harm. That's not a position we're in anymore. And notwithstanding that there are harms to the scheme that we have in front of us, I see that there has been an improvement, and that what we're looking at is much more moderate in terms of those harms, broadly speaking, and that actually the land supply is a critical issue that we have to be very mindful of. So I can appreciate where the parish council, the neighbours are coming from, and the ward member. I am very sympathetic to those views, but I don't feel that we're in a position from a technical standpoint to go against those. I'll stop short of making a proposal just at this moment, because I want to hear what other people say, but that's my feelings at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, actually, and of course the position we're in regarding the 5-year housing land supply is not of our own making, effectively. It's somebody else's situation that's been pushed upon us. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I have full sympathy for Mr. and Mrs. Pratt as the neighbours, who've obviously lived in their lovely home for many, many years, developing their garden, developing their amenity space, and have had no building adjacent to them. So I do understand their concerns and thank them for presenting them in a constructive way. Unfortunately, I couldn't see a material planning reason to refuse it because of the separation distances, I also think, living in my little village, we're desperately short of little two-bedroom bungalows. They're in terrific need for a downsizing perspective. And I think if this had been a two-storey house, then it wouldn't have got, it would be overpowering, there would be concerns regarding light, but this is a single-storey unit that is much in demand by, dare I say, my own generation, let's put it that way, that actually can benefit from the nearby facilities of being in a centre of a rural village, but to have all on one floor living. So from that point of view, I'm happy to propose that we grant in line with the officer's recommendations. I noticed that in the conditions we've got bird boxes. I do hope that will include a swift box in view of the change to planning regulations for new dwellings that's been announced this week at government. But I do understand and I have sympathy for the neighbours, and I understand where the parish council are coming, but we also have H1 in the neighbourhood development plan, which is in support of infill development. I have nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you very much. I just confirm then that you're proposing grant in accordance with the recommendation from the officers and in line with the conditions, of which there are quite a number. It's an odd number, 13. The next speaker was Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to as Councillor Parry has said, very sympathetic to Mr and Mrs Pratt and the situation that obviously they're in, being next door to the proposed site. However, again, I can't see any planning material reasons why it should be refused. And the concern that I had personally was around the tree itself. I think the officer has appeased me by showing me that actually the distance from the tree and the actual dwelling itself. So I'm proposed to second the officer's recommendation, including, because I know you're going to ask, all the conditions from 1 to 13.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? I think we're all probably of the same mind on this, that it's quite difficult when you've lived a long time somewhere and you know, as Mr and Mrs Pratt have to have this sort of incursion into the back of their garden. I can only hope that, and obviously one of the big pressures we've come under is the change in government policy towards finding more and more houses. And I completely agree with what Councillor Parry has said in respect of the demand for small properties that people from family houses can downsize to. Anyway, so we've got a proposer, Councillor Parry, seconder, Councillor Ballinger, to grant, so I'll poke myself in the eye there, grant 2501259 FUL, which is 10 St Michael's Road, Claverden. Can I have a show of cards in support of that, please? Is that unanimous? Okay, thank you. In which case, Council resolves to grant application 2501259 FUL, that's 10 St Michael's Road, Claverden. Thank you all very much indeed for your contributions to help us with a very difficult decision on that. Members, we'll just take another couple of seconds break since it's now 9 o'clock. And we'll be back to hear the last item on the agenda. I'm sorry it's taken such a long time. For those that have been here the whole time, thank you very much for your patience. We'll be back shortly.
okay with the committee, I would like to excuse myself just for this last case, if that's okay.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the 3 hours that you've, and I know you probably come from work as well, so this is 12-hour day plus safe journey home. Thank you very much. Where are we with Councillor Harding, do you think? Thank you, Councillor Harding. Right, okay, can we resume the meeting, Howard, please? Thank you. Okay, so on to the next agenda item, and this is application 2401218 FUL Dog Hill Farm, Birmingham Road, Mappleborough Green. The presenting officer is Joe Brooke. Joe, when you're ready, if you'd like to take us through this application, please.
I do apologise. So, as indicated by the plan before you, the application is in Mappleborough Green, situated on Birmingham Road. The plan before you shows the context of the site and the surrounding area, and I will go into a more Google Earth imitation in a minute. So, this is obviously the red line boundary showing the site. It is a red brick bungalow. You have the jet petrol station, number of dwellings across the road, large roundabout, garden centres and garden centres. So this one gives it more context, and that's the reason I've included it. So the site is here, as long as you can see my cursor. Yeah, just about. So the site is there. That's the neighbouring property, the Pennines. This is the Harvester pub with a large car park, Studley Garden Centre, nursing home lodge, jet petrol station, restaurant, another garden centre, dwellings across the road. There we go. The plans before you showed the existing and proposed floor plans, so it is quite evident, I hope, that you can see the differences, and obviously that basically this rear conservatory, and you'll be able to see that more when the photo is forthcoming, will be removed. These will be extended to the rear. This will be kept the same but inset on the right hand side, and there will be an increase in height, which you should be able to review now. So this is existing next on the left hand side to the proposed. So as you can see at the minute, there is kind of there will be a bungalow, a dormer window to accommodate the 1.5 metre, 1.5 storey dwelling. The side elevation shows that the rear conservatory will be removed. The roof would be enclosed to the front elevation, and then it would end up with a flat roof to the rear if permitted. So here's some photos for context. This is the dwelling itself, the front of the dwelling just facing off Birmingham Road. So literally looking straight into the site with a long driveway. This is context for the neighbouring dwelling, the Pennines. So this is your dwelling before you, just here. These are the side elevations. As you can see, the jet petrol station is very closely related. This is the rear conservatory that I was discussing earlier that was proposed to be removed. So obviously, if it was permitted, the roof line would roughly be here and increased. Some more context, the Pennines is the dwelling literally over the fence. This is the conservatory to the rear to be removed, and this is obviously just to give you a side elevation access when coming into the site with the gated areas to the rear of the property. So for surrounding context, because I've obviously shown you the site location in Google Earth, this is a jet petrol station. You're coming down the Birmingham Road from there. These are the dwellings across the road beyond the fence line. See one-storey bungalows and the existing landscaping. This is then coming up to the roundabout, so you can just see the Pennines on that area there, and this would be the dwelling itself here. So looking through the forecourt of the petrol station, where the ridge line would be increased, but as you can see, there is a number of structures in the way of that photo. So directly across, that is the bungalow that was sort of shown in one of my previous photos. I was stood here at the driveway only yesterday taking this photo, looking across to the other properties across the road to give full context, hopefully. And that's the end of the presentation. As set out in the officer's report, recommendation is for grant, subject to the conditions as set out. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joe. So we have some speakers on this item as well. And first speakers are Councillor Maureen Berry, the Chair of Mappleborough Green Parish Council, and Councillor Matthew Spencer, also of Mappleborough Green Parish Council. Welcome. Good evening, and thank you for your patience. I'm sorry it's so late. Well, not every time, but sometimes, and it makes it for a long day for us as well. Now, you have 3 minutes you're objecting to this, so 3 minutes to explain your concerns. Okay, thank you, Councillor Berry. And just when you're ready, just take us through your concerns.
Thank you. Chair, members, thank you. I wish to object to this application on the grounds that raising the roof of this bungalow will cause unacceptable loss of light and sunlight to the neighbouring property, contrary to Stratford's core strategy policy, CS10. The bungalow currently has a low-profile form, which allows adequate daylight and sunlight to reach the surrounding home following the conversion and separation of the original small bungalow in 2010. The proposal to raise the roof would significantly increase the height and the bulk of the building, resulting in overshadowing that is harmful to its neighbours' residential amenity. The property is orientated on an east-west axis. This is critically important as the neighbour is to the north and would experience increased shadowing all day long, causing loss of sunlight in the main parts of this property, especially in the garden. Raising the roof would therefore block sunlight for long periods throughout the day, not just at isolated times, resulting in reduced daylight to neighbouring windows, loss of usable sunlight to the gardens, a darker, more oppressive environment on the adjoining house. Policy CS10 is clear that the development must protect residential amenities, including access to light and outlook. This proposal fails to do so. It's also important to consider that the community impact on this site. The plot has already been granted permission for a caravan site in the rear garden, and the proposal includes the demolition of part of the bungalow to widen the entrance. These changes show the site is already under pressure, and raising the roof further intensifies the development in a way that the plot cannot accommodate without harm. The increased height will make the building appear overbearing to the neighbours and will fundamentally change the character of the existing bungalow, turning what was a modest structure into one that dominates its surroundings. In conclusion, the raised roof would cause unacceptable overshadowing, loss of light and harm to the residential amenities, particularly due to the east-west orientation of the site. This directly conflicts with our Council's core strategy, CS10, and the harm caused would outweigh the benefit of the proposal. For those reasons, I would respectfully ask for the committee to refuse this application. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Berry. Thank you very much for that. Members, do we have any questions about this application and these concerns that are raised by the Parish Council? Yes. Councillor Hench-Seraphin.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Has the applicant or the agent ever come to the Parish Council meeting to discuss this
No.
application?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Councillor Ballinger, please.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. The 3 letters of objection, do you know if they're from the neighbours at all?
I think there's more than 3. There's 2 from the bungalows across the road. Each of those have put in a letter. The garden centre has objected, and obviously the next door neighbour has objected. The next door neighbour is actually here tonight.
Thank you. The neighbour from the Pennines?
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you. I mean, obviously, you've raised the issue of the impact on the Pennines and the orientation of the Pennines in relation to this particular property that's going to have the modifications. We'll be asking the case officers for a bit more detail, I think, about that and how that complies or otherwise with our planning documents.
The case officer has already mentioned in there that there will be a reduction in light to the kitchen area.
There are some, and we'll ask for clarification on that in respect of our policies, because we have policies and we want to make sure it's policy compliant. Thank you. Any further questions? No, looks like that's it. Thank you ever so much for coming along, and again, thank you for your patience this evening and waiting till quite late in the evening to present. So we have another presentation now, and that's from Gary Phillips, who's the agent for the applicant. Good evening, Mr. Phillips. Sorry it's so late. It's just one of those things, I'm sorry. But probably better to hear it tonight than to defer it until 2026. So anyway, so you have 3 minutes to explain the application to us so we've got a better understanding of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors. So this application was submitted 18 months ago, and as referred to by the objectors, obviously has been tied up in the complications with the caravan site behind. The actual extension, the actual work to create the sort of part conversion of the roof and raise the roof, we've actually looked at that scheme over the last 18 months with officers and basically reduced the height of the original proposal significantly. So when you look at objectors' comments in the committee report, it refers to a 3 metre height difference. It's actually less than a metre. It's actually only 0.9 metres, and that is at the centre of the roof. So there shouldn't be any overshadowing. I'd also like to refer to the properties adjacent. We've referred to the Pennines, but immediately adjacent to the Pennines is the Dog Public House, which is 8.5 metres high. Along that run of properties, so where we saw the aerial photograph that was presented by officers just before, obviously we had the objectors' comments, just out of picture, right at the bottom of that, you have the ex-head of the council's property called The House, and also New Oakdean, and those 2 properties are both 8.5 metres high. Our finished property, if this proposal went forward, would only be 5.5 metres high at the ridge. So this isn't a property that is going to be disproportionate to other properties in the area. It's made up of a complex mix of commercial properties as well as residential homes. So we're actually omitting 8 metres square of footprint, which effectively that volume proportionally we're actually adding to the roof space. So I would suggest that this proposal is proportionate and low scale and will have little to no impact on any neighbours or any overshadowing or being overbearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Phillips. That was a bit of useful context for members, I'm sure. Do any of the members have any further questions for you? Well, I do. If that's okay, I'll pitch in, and I'm sure someone will think of something in a minute. You mentioned the neighbouring property, the dog pub. And it's very, very tall. But what we heard Councillor Berry say was that the Pennines is on the northern side of the application site. So probably when you look at where the sun is, I'm just wondering if the dog pub's on the other side. Is the dog pub on the other side of the Pennines?
It is, yes. It is.
Okay, so in fact, it's probably less impactful in respect to daylight because it's on the north.
Yeah, it's probably less
Yeah.
impactful in daylight, but in relation to proportionate and overbearing nature of the location, I would say that that's perhaps greater
Right,
in
okay.
hard terms in the green belt.
Yeah, and you clarified, didn't you, that we have in the report objections talking about raising the height of the roof by 3 metres and we're taking it presumably to something like 7.5, whereas actually you're only raising it 1.
Well, 0.9 metres, we believe.
Right, which takes it to 5.5. Do you know what the ridge height of the Pennines is, just off the top of your head? Is it similar to that?
I would say it's less than that. It's probably slightly more than the existing property, but it's going to be less, maybe half a metre less.
Yeah, we saw it on the photographs. I just actually was looking for that specifically. The Pennines is a little bit higher at the ridge height.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions coming forward now? I've given you. Councillor Fleming wanted to know that as well. Do you want to put your microphone on? It's quite happy for you to put your views.
Yeah, that was the relevant photo for me because I can't see what it's going to make it look out of place if it's going to be something very similar to the next door house.
Yeah. So your question is, can we see the photograph of the Pennines?
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you, Councillor Fleming. Thank you very much. Anybody else like to comment? No, in which case, thank you very much, Mr. Phillips, for your presentation and helping us understand the application. We have one final speaker, Councillor Shenton. Good evening, Councillor Shenton. Apologies again for your late arrival to the table. But thank you very much for your patience. And I've got you down for 5 minutes, and whenever you're ready, take us through your concerns.
Thank you very much. Obviously, my comments are based upon the report that you've got in front of you rather than anything else. So I'll go straight in. I'll work through the report in roughly the same order, so hope that you've got there, so hopefully that will help. CS1 states that we'll work proactively where possible to secure developments that improves the social, economic and environment conditions. It appears that that was not possible, as I'm going to highlight. CS10, the report says there would be an impact on the green belt. I agree with that, with the report. The proposal is taller and larger than the existing dwelling. Visually, CS10 states that one of the key factors to be considered is the visual impact of the proposed building compared to the existing building. The report gives a subjective view that there are limited views of the extension, but not that it cannot be seen. Good design would have ensured that the views were a bit more pleasing to the eye. CS9 states that it should improve the quality of the public realm and enhance the sense of place. High quality design will be attractive, sensitive and distinctive. I would argue the proposal does not appear to meet those tests. In fact, the report appears to suggest that the application for 7 holiday homes previously granted may even have contributed to this failure. The report stated that the decision on this particular aspect is finely balanced. I disagree with the conclusion that it's acceptable. My view is that the application does not add high quality design. CS20 states the extension should be subservient. The report acknowledges that it isn't and that it adds size and bulk to the size of the dwelling. Again, I agree with this assessment, but the report is minded to consider it acceptable, presumably because nothing could be worse than the petrol station next door. I take the counter view that it's not acceptable. Other issues include the loss of light and overbearing. The report concludes that the extension will be taller and extend deeper into the site, and there will be an impact on the neighbour. This is in the report, and I agree 100% with that. The report states the kitchen would retain sufficient light. It does not say that the light would remain the same, unaffected. So one can only agree with the report that there will be some overbearing and loss of life. The report states that the 45-degree rule is breached. Again, I agree with the report. CS2, SPD, D, V and Q, the report says it meets the expectation of these. I would argue that are our expectations so low as there is no mention of the use of cool materials, air pumps, EV chargers, increases in energy performance. We appear to have set the bar so low that 2 bins and a couple of trickle vents is all that we can expect and now meets the requirements of those particular policies and SPDs. The report appears to be saying that due to the dominant petrol station and the approval of the holiday home site, the street scene is mixed in character. And whilst this application is finally balanced in terms of design per CS9, no one will notice just how bad it is. It will blend in with its mixed surroundings. Is this really what we want? So my view is that this application combines with the previous approvals and should have come up with something more aesthetically pleasing, something more sensitive to its surroundings, and something that improves as it is better than what is there now. I am the first to acknowledge, as many of you will know, that I am no planning expert, but I do know my ward and what the parish council residents and the local businesses want to see is an improvement in the area. This application does not meet the challenge, and I feel that it fails to comply with CS9, 10, 20. There would be loss of light and overbearing as per the report. It breaches the 45-degree rule, and there's no discernible gains from a climate change and sustainable construction perspective. The report acknowledges most of these points, but in my opinion, the conclusions are at odds with those failures. Whilst one might expect to see 1 or 2 finally balanced issues, this application is littered with breaches or failures against policy and introduces a carbuncle into a location, and I therefore ask the committee to consider refusing this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you very much. Right. Members, do you have any questions in respect to that? Councillor Adam.
Possibly you'll be able to answer, I'm not sure. Looking at the elevations, it appears that the pitch of the increased height is similar to the existing. Is that the case? Just at the moment it looks like it's...
Yeah, this is
sorry.
You're jumping. I know it's late, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
it's
me.
late, yeah, it's late.
Sorry,
it's okay, Councillor. It's okay. It's been a long. It's just jumping the gun. No, I think we've got. Oh, hang on a second, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to see you, Ian. You've listed out a number of instances where you think there are inconsistencies between the evidence and the conclusion reached, but you haven't said whether you think they are dreadful, terrible, minor. Could you just describe them in overall, if you were making the decision, how significant you think these breaches are in total?
So I'd go back to what I said a few minutes ago. I'm no planning expert. So what I've tried to do here is to highlight the fact that there are inconsistencies in compliance with policies and the conclusion. My view, I suppose, is that there are a number of differences. There are quite a series of differences, and collectively, one must ask why we're allowing such an application with so many departures from policy, which, in fairness, Joe has highlighted in his report, why we're actually looking to grant this rather than say, well, we could do better here and take out some of these inconsistencies or address them better. So I think overall, that's my position, that collectively it adds up to a situation of why are we allowing this application when so many inconsistencies with policies, which, as I say, Joe has highlighted himself. So I'm not bringing anything new, I'm just highlighting those differences themselves.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Shenton. I think I'd just summarise by saying, yeah, I think some of these things are flushed out through the report, and the professional planner has come to a conclusion based upon his weighing up of these different issues, and that's what the job is about, isn't it? Weighing these things up.
Well, absolutely, but it would be wrong of me not to highlight these issues, because we have residents in Mapplewood Green that are obviously very unhappy with this.
And you're right to do so. Thank you very much for presenting to us. Right, councillors, we've got the opportunity to ask questions of clarification of the officers now. So, Councillor Adam.
Thank you very much. Apologies for misspeaking earlier. I was just wondering about the sort of pitch of the roof, because it appears from the elevations, though it's not noted, that the pitch will be similar between the existing and the proposed, and I would have thought that that was material to the impact any the proposal would have on the light to some extent, and also I suppose a slight add-on to that is that some of it, the proposal is going to be flat roofed instead of pitched at all. So I just wondered how that factors into that assessment. I know that there's technicalities within the report. It was more just your interpretation, if possible.
So there's a number of elements to that. So first of all, overall the pitch, if it was approved, would be higher than the Pennines, roughly about between 0.9 and 1 metre. But when you come in to then do the assessment in respect to any overlooking or loss of daylight or impact on like the shadowing of gardens, it's not a simple factor, a rule of literally if you fail at 1 point, that's the end of it. So if you look into the residential amenity section, and I'll show some more in 2 seconds, is yes, there's a breach of the 45-degree line. However, there isn't a breach of the 25-degree test, and let me just, I'm hoping IT works now. First of all, because I know how difficult these tests are, these are SPD standard guidance. So as you can see before you, and this is the reason I'm showing it, it would be nice if I could zoom that in a bit more. See if that works. It's not coming in too much, unfortunately. That's the 45-degree test, and that is the 25-degree test, which we have to do as officers when we're trying to determine these sort of things. So let me go then back to the plans, and what I'm hoping now works is I can get in a zoomed-in version of this plan and get it online. So this is existing against the proposed. As you can see, the existing plan, this is the rear of the Pennines, is there. So there is going to be a breach of the 25-degree. There's going to be a breach of the 25-degree, sorry, yeah. What there isn't going to be a breach because of the setback and the way that it has been designed on the Pennines regarding the pitch roof is it won't be a breach on the angle looking upwards. So when you've got that with the sunlight coming round, that is then in essence sufficient enough to meet them standards in accordance to our SPD guidelines. Moreover, if you go into the nuances of lines, it sets out the BRM standards, BREEAM we call them, which basically says actually to meet those standards, it's not as high as you would expect, but to meet those standards, it has to be sufficient daylight, which is over something like 50, I can't remember exactly what phrase it is, at the highest point of the year, of the highest point in the sunlight. So unfortunately, there is a number of standards that we have to test that assessment against when coming against those standards. What I would also say, and that's set out in the residential report, when it comes to overlooking or overshadowing more in this respect, is it's not just one window. We have to also assess, is there more windows serving their areas? And the report sets out what it is. Councillor Shenton is absolutely right, there is certain breaches, but when we're as officers sitting here assessing them, it's not just a case of yes or no, everything does have to be weighed in the balance. I hope that's kind of answered it.
Thank you, Joe. I think it does. Any further questions, points of clarification? Thank you, Sue. Councillor Hench-Serafin.
Yeah. The demolition of the conservatory and what is the volume of the extension that is put on the back of the bungalow?
That's actually fine, Councillor. I've got a backup slide. 2 seconds. Let me just scroll all the way to the bottom. So this is what was submitted, and you can see the existing volume against the proposed volume. I've done my own calculations. There was a discrepancy of 1%, so I got 29%, so I think they're very reflective.
Have you got a follow-up question about the scale?
Yeah. Would this have an impact on the previous application of the caravans in the rear garden?
Not in my opinion, Councillor, no. Simply, actually, in all honesty, because of the impact on rear gardens, I think it's set out in the report, that then kind of encloses it, and from appeal decisions that we've recently received, that then probably reduces the impact on the green belt.
Okay, and that would be a small scale increase, in your opinion? In
my opinion, many years ago, there was a rule of thumb of pretty much 30%. That has gone, so you have to do it on a factored and degree, but as you can see here, this is below 30%.
Thank you, Joe. Any further questions, clarification? Right, can we move? Oh, hang on. Mr. Jeffries.
I would just draw to attention that it's within the built-up area boundary and we consider it limited infilling in greenbelt terms.
Right, thank you for that, David. Right, okay, so we can move on to the discussion and debate about the merits or otherwise and your thoughts. You've got the officer's report and officer's recommendation. Who would like to kick off? Councillor Adam.
Thank you. I appreciate where the ward member and parish council are coming from on this, because there are some aspects which don't sit well when they, certainly on the outset, there are some technical issues. But as Joe's set out, I feel that we don't have a policy background that substantiates those being of adequate weight to go against this application. So on that basis, I'm happy to propose we grant in line with the officer's recommendations.
Yeah, can you just clarify as well when you're proposing that that we grant in accordance with the report, the officer's recommendations, in accordance also with these conditions? And I would draw your attention to condition 5.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I did note that the removal of PD and I was content that that was appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Ballinger had his hand up next, and I'll come on to you in a second, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've heard a lot tonight from Councillor Berry around her concerns with the overshadowing with the neighbour, the loss of sunlight, the reduced daylight, and also Councillor Shenton, and also the agent. However, my concern was around the degree element, and I think Joe has appeased my concerns. So I am looking to second Councillor Adam, and again I know you're going to ask, and that is regarding the recommendation to grant and with the conditions 1 to 5 and including number 5.
Thank you, Councillor Ballinger. Councillor Parry.
Well, I think Councillor Ballinger's stolen my thunder. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And I think actually what they've tried to do was to improve the accommodation and the amenity of this particular property in the best possible way. And it has been clearly extremely challenging. But I think the redesign and its repositioning has certainly helped. Commend Joe for his explanation on the breaches, because I've actually found that really helpful. But also commend the ward member for being so diligent in his efforts in putting the case forward. But I think I like Tom, and I'm keen to go with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd echo what you said. I don't think I'd have used the analogy of the sows here, because it's a nice little bungalow, but I do agree with you. You know, it's quite difficult to turn that into better living accommodation. And yeah,
because Councillor Shenton was talking about the design, and
yeah, I know.
You know, you've got to work with
what you've got. Yeah, and you've got a small little bungalow, and you know, the height of the roof is not really on a lot. I mean, my biggest issue is for the neighbour next door. You know, is the Pennines genuinely going to suffer a result of this development? And I think there will be some impact, but I'm hoping that it will be, and from what I've heard, I think it will be fairly negligible, is what I think personally. But let's see. From the evidence we've seen, that's the case. Anyway, we've got a proposal from Councillor Adam to. Sorry. Oh, right, okay. Councillor Hench-Serafin, you wanted to join the debate.
I just wanted to say, because I'd heard this 3 metre high extension to the roof, and it's actually 0.9, and the roof is a hip design, I am concerned about the impact on the neighbour, which is always the case, and but I can't find a planning reason to reject it, unfortunately. I mean, I couldn't come up with one, let's put it that way.
Okay, does anybody else like to speak before I sum up? No, I'm looking good. Okay, so we've got a proposal, Councillor Adam, to follow the recommendation of the officers that grant this application, which is 2401218 FUL at Dog Hill Farm, seconded by Councillor Parry. It's in accordance with those conditions 1 to 5, noted removal of permitted development.
Sorry, Chair, can I just say I seconded it? Thank you.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Who did I say seconded it? Oh, right. Yeah, well, right. Okay, well, I'll start again. As proposed by Councillor Adam, seconded by Councillor Ballinger, in accordance with these conditions, 1 to 5, noting particularly the removal of the permitted development rights. So can we take a vote on that, please? A show of cards in favour of that proposal. So that's 10. And those against the proposal? None. And those abstaining? 1. So on that basis, I can say that Council have resolved to grant 2401218 FUL Dog Hill Farm in accordance with the officer's report and those 1 to 5 conditions 1 to 5. So thank you very much for all of you that have presented this evening and helped us to deliberate on these applications. And again, thank you for your patience. It's been a long evening, and thank you members also for sticking with it. Item 7 on the agenda, urgent business. Howard, is there any urgent business? There's no urgent business, in which case I can declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.